is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program here. And the number, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can, of course, bring up absolutely anything you want to talk about here tonight. It's Ian here with you.
And Aria.
Bonnie will be joining us shortly. She's been out traveling today, so she just got back. And so there's a lot, of course, in the news, as always, to talk about. One of the big stories right now is a massive missile attack, apparently, by Russia against Ukraine. Now, of course, the Western mainstream media is calling this the biggest attacks in months, showing, pictures of, injured people taken from various different sites. And the Russian side of the story is, of course, well, this is just a retaliation for the attack on their bridge, which happened over the weekend. We covered that in detail here.
I had heard about the bridge, not in depth, obviously, because Western media isn't going to talk about that. And I'm not able to go to RT to get the Russian side of things. But as I understand it, there was this important bridge related to Crimea, whatever. And the Ukrainian military destroyed it?
Well, Ukraine has not taken responsibility for it, but the Russia side of things is that it was Ukraine that did it. They claim that they have investigated it somehow or whatever, and that all indicators point to Ukraine.
Well, whether it was the Ukrainian military or even sanctioned or approved by the Ukrainian government, Ukrainian military, it was anti-Russian and it was pro-Ukrainian, so...
Yeah, and it's not unbelievable that it would have been Ukraine that did it, because Ukraine also had been attacking Crimea in various different ways. For instance, they built a dam to prevent water from getting to Crimea, which was destroyed early on in the invasion by Russia to restore the water to supply to Crimea. So
yeah, that's horrific. I mean, denying someone water like that's kind of an act of war,
it's
man.
Terror. It's absolute terror. Bonnie, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So, again, Western media reporting AP that Russia retaliated for an attack on a critical bridge by unleashing its most widespread strikes against Ukraine in months, a lethal barrage that smashed civilian targets, knocked out power and water, shattered buildings, and killed at least 14 people.
The terminology here is interesting. I wouldn't expect the Western media to refer to this as retaliation, because that's sort of, it suggests that Ukraine was behind the bridge attack.
It does indeed.
Did they say that they investigated and found out that the bridge attack was also Ukraine, or is that still under investigation?
The Russian side of things is that's the story, at least. And again, all of this is just stories, right? So there's the Western media story that Russia is, attacking civilians with these monstrous missiles, and how could they do this? And the Russian side is, well, y'all destroyed a bridge, so we're going to attack. According to RT's report about this, Vladimir Putin has warned that any further Ukrainian terrorist assaults on Russian soil will be met with a significant military response. Speaking regarding the wave of missiles that struck Ukraine Monday morning, Putin confirmed that Russian troops carried out, quote, massive strikes with long-range precision weapons on Ukrainian objects of energy and military control and communications. So the viewpoint from Russia that they would have you believe is, hey, look, yeah, we shot a bunch of missiles, but we were targeting very specific things of, Ukrainian governmental kind of infrastructure. And the Western media is like, these missiles are coming down in neighborhoods. So, who knows where the actual truth lies?
I don't know where the truth lies, certainly. However, I will say that even if all of these things, even if the events themselves, if not the details, are true, let's say the Ukrainian military did take out the bridge, or Ukrainian sympathizers or whatever, Ukraine took out the bridge, and Russia fired missiles. Killing people seems disproportionate in retaliation for the destruction of a bridge.
Isn't it like a really important, I'm not saying that killing people is okay, but isn't it a really important bridge to Russia? Like, kind of like the waterway is like...
Super important. It's a 11-mile bridge, I think, between, so it's huge.
That's an enormous bridge.
Between Crimea and the Russian mainland.
In order to get like goods from Crimea to the frozen in the winter
basically
mainland?
all goods are coming across that bridge, essentially, unless they can come through the Ukrainian direction. But at this time, that part is Ukraine, so like the eastern portion of Ukraine is still under question, right? Like Russia is now calling eastern Ukraine Russia. Ukraine is now calling that, well, still calling it Ukraine. And so that's where the controversy and the ongoing fighting is likely to continue.
Is Ukraine at war with Crimea?
Well,
because, I mean, it sounds like they are.
As I understand it, they're upset, right? Because Crimea basically broke away and joined Russia in 2014. And so they've been subject to alleged terror strikes by
I thought
Ukraine
Russia annexed Crimea.
There was a vote and then they annexed it.
Yeah, I heard
right?
there was a vote this weekend. That's what I think Picolis Mountaineer said.
One question I have is one of Ukraine's goals to get back, the Donbass region and Crimea? Or are they not trying to get Crimea back?
I think they still have Crimea, don't they?
Russia has Crimea.
No, the Ukrainians. Are they trying to get Crimea back?
I'm not sure. I don't know if they're just trying to punish them or take it back or what their goals are.
Well, if it's true they cut off their water supply, it sounds like they're trying to punish them or exterminate them or kill them or whatever. And if it's true that this is an 11-mile bridge and that most of the goods that are received in Crimea come from and travel across this bridge, it makes it a little more understandable, not proportionate still, but it makes it more understandable that Russia would respond with missile fire.
There were allegedly 3 people that did die, 3 innocent people that died. So there was a suicide bomb, apparently, that set off, was in a truck that was going across the bridge. And at the time, there was a passenger vehicle that was right next to the truck. So purportedly, the 3 deaths were the people that were in that passenger vehicle that was just happened to be next to it when it exploded.
Terrible.
Putin said further, if there are further attempts to conduct terrorist attacks on our soil, Russia will respond firmly and on a scale corresponding to the threats created against Russia. Earlier in the day, multiple regions, this is back to RT's report, of Ukraine came under missile strikes with at least 11 key infrastructure facilities damaged, according to the Ukrainian Prime Minister, Denis Shmyhal. Putin stated that Russia was retaliating for a number of attempts to strike Russian infrastructure that have been attributed to Kyiv. Among other things, they say Ukraine has damaged high-voltage power lines to transmit electricity generated by the Kursk nuclear power plant, tried to sabotage the Turk Stream natural gas pipeline, that's the pipeline that goes from Russia to Turkey, as I understand it, and was behind Saturday's explosion that damaged the Crimean bridge.
Wait, what is the evidence that they tried to destroy the Turkish pipeline?
I don't know. We'll have to look into that story again. Evidence is all subjective to who's reporting on it, right? So
even if they presented evidence, it wouldn't mean a whole lot to me because I couldn't trust the evidence itself. As far as I can tell, and I've said this repeatedly, that they're all liars, and there's no evidence to believe anything that any of them are saying about any of this.
Indeed. The Kyiv regime has been using terrorist methods for a very long time, said the Russian president, citing targeted assassinations of public figures, the indiscriminate shelling of Donbass cities, and of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as examples of such actions. Quote, de facto, the Kyiv regime has put itself on par with international terrorist groups, the most odious of them. Leaving such crimes without a response has become impossible, he stressed, before confirming that Russia had attacked the Ukrainian infrastructure. So there's your update. I mean, the story continues, but that's both sides, right? So on the Western side, it's some struck civilian areas. The Western media does admit that. I'm sorry, they're claiming that Russia said missiles targeted military and energy facilities. Some did strike Russian civilian areas while people were heading to work and to school. One hit a playground, according to the Western media, in downtown Kyiv, and another struck a university.
I mean, that sounds horrible, but the United States has to understand that these targeting systems aren't purpose. Just look at the Doctors Without Borders hospitals that the United States bombed, or the wedding.
On purpose?
I don't think the Doctors Without Borders hospital was.
As I understand it, that it was.
But the U.S. bombs have killed countless civilians.
Sure, that's a fact. War's an ugly thing. Definitely don't support either side in this case. It's hard to say which one's worse. More coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones are open here, and you can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, you've got Ian.
And Bonnie.
And Arya.
We started out with a update on what's been going on in Russia and specifically the attacks in Ukraine, the back and forth. Ukraine allegedly bombed a bridge over the weekend, a very critical piece of key infrastructure. So Russia says they lobbed some missiles back over at, or not back, it was a truck bomb ostensibly that blew up the bridge, but lobbed some missiles in response today, apparently, into various different targets in Ukraine. Russia is saying that if the terrorist strikes against Russia continue, they will continue to retaliate. And of course, that's likely going to continue going on because, as we talked about over the weekend, the Ukrainian side is not wanting to have any kind of discussion of peace. They want this conflict to continue. They want to keep fighting with Russia over the people in the eastern part of Ukraine who just want to leave, it seems like, Ukraine, if the referendums that happened a couple weeks ago are to be believed.
And it makes perfect sense for Zelensky, right? He wants attention. He was an actor. I mean, all actors are I don't want to say narcissists, but they want attention.
Now he's on the world stage.
Yeah, they literally want to be in the limelight. And now now he's the president of Ukraine, or the dictator of Ukraine, and he's got the entire world watching him, and he doesn't want that to ever go away. He's getting off on it.
Yep. So that's the story there. I don't know if there's really much else to say about it, but if you want to weigh in, you are welcome to join us on the way here tonight. Well, I guess, Aria, you've got a related story. Apparently, somebody in the Russian Duma, which is their parliament, basically, has announced that they're welcoming U.S. states who want to leave the United States and join Russia.
Well, welcoming, yeah. It's awesome. I loved it. As soon as I saw this headline, I was like, yes, that's going into show prep. But they're not exactly welcoming any U.S. states that might want to join the Russian Federation, but they will be considered, says the Duma member. And as you mentioned, Duma is the Russian parliament.
I've never even heard talk of states being like, we really want to join Russia, so where's this coming from?
I don't think anyone is really saying it, at least from the Western side of things. I don't think any U.S. states are like, we want to join Russia. But
I don't think so.
It's a way for Russia to poke at the United States. Right. And that's what I like. They're trolling. A senior member of the State Duma, that's Russia's parliament again, said that any U.S. states that want to break away from the country and instead join the Russian Federation will be considered. Now, I don't want New Hampshire to secede and join the Russian Federation.
No way.
Because that's just, swapping one evil
awful.
Overlord for another.
Yeah.
But it could get the conversation going again about secession, maybe.
No, I don't think we should even talk about that.
That will just get people to be even more scared because they'll be like, we'll be a target for the DC to, take it out on Russia, and plus everybody hates Russia right now.
Look, DC's
Russia's
bad.
so out.
There's
Ukraine
no
is
doubt
in.
that DC is bad.
Well, see,
Russia may be worse.
My perspective is that I don't want anything to do with this nonsense. Right? And I suspect that's sort of where Russia's coming from. Hey, if you don't want to have anything to do with this United States nonsense, we'll take you. However, from my point of view, Russia's just as evil as the United States. Of course, Russia doesn't feel that way, but I do.
Yeah.
The comments come only a week after Russia declared that 4 regions of Ukraine had become Russian territory following referendums that were widely criticized by Ukrainian and Western officials as being shams. They
were called shams. It's worth pointing out they were calling them sham referendums before they even started. So it wasn't like they went in with some sort of third-party observer and watched the process and said, oh, yeah, we saw cheating going on here. This is definitely a sham. No, they just said, oh, Russia's involved in this? Well, it's a sham. We're just not going to respect it. Quote-unquote, democracy's so important, but yet when the people of the eastern Ukraine decide to engage in democracy and make a vote on where they want their future to lie, well, then that democracy is not okay. That democracy is a sham.
Yeah, democracy that says we don't like the United States or we don't like Ukraine, totally not acceptable. That's not real democracy. It would be interesting. It's a shame it didn't happen because, of course, none of these people want peace, but it's a shame that the United States or the United Kingdom or someone wasn't like, hey, look, we just want to watch your elections and make sure they're legit. So we want to send some diplomats over and just, observe things. I wonder how Russia would have responded to that.
I would like to think it would have been welcomed, but because it would have looked bad if they hadn't welcomed that.
Right.
But it was never offered. It was just immediately called a sham.
And 99% of the voters voting for Russia certainly seems odd to me.
But there's an explanation, and that is that the Ukrainian government said to their people, if you participate in this election, we will put you in prison for 5 years.
That's right, they did.
So anyone that's actually supported staying with Ukraine would have been afraid to actually cast a vote for Ukraine because it would be participating in the election, even though they would have voted to stay in Ukraine. So, of course, those people didn't show up.
And the other thing is, this is the part of Ukraine that the Kiev has been bombing since before the war. It's
supposedly.
Like they probably aren't very happy with Kiev.
Yeah, it's not unbelievable that, and some of the other areas it was like 87%, so it wasn't a full 99% in the more southern tier areas of this particular vote.
They pulled this same nonsense in Catalonia and Spain, though. When Catalonia had its referendum to declare independence or whatever it was they were trying to declare independence. I don't remember what exactly the vote was for, but the Spanish government came out and said the same thing. Hey, don't even participate in this. If you participate in this, you're committing treason or something. I don't think they used that exact terminology, but and of course, then when the results were widely in support of Catalonian independence, they came out and said, well, we can't trust that. It's a sham. It's not true, because these people didn't actually vote. These were Donetsk and Luhansk in eastern Ukraine, these referendums they're referring to that we were just talking about, and Zaporizhia in the south. The votes supported the regions changing from Ukrainian to Russian territory. I would say that the votes did change the regions from Ukrainian to Russian, just like if New Hampshire had voted in favor of secession, it would have been immediate.
And that's how Russia's treating it, by the way. They've signed papers, and there's been, whatever paperwork has gone through the Duma and has gone back to Putin, and it's been signed off. And so, from what they're saying, this is moving forward. They're talking about bringing in the Russian courts. They're talking about building administrative buildings, or bringing in their bureaucrats or whatever. So, I mean, it's not something to get excited about. Obviously, independence would be nicer for these folks, but they can't get that. They tried that in 2014. They tried to get independence. And
did these regions also attempt to declare independence?
Luhansk and Donetsk did, not the Zaporizhia or however you pronounce that. And
so
Kherson.
Why is it lumped in now?
Because Russia wants the entire eastern part of Ukraine. They want to be able to get down to the
Crimea.
Not to necessarily to Crimea, but have another route down to the ocean or to the Black Sea. Yeah. So as I understand it, and again, there are a lot of Russian-speaking people on the eastern side of Ukraine, so it's not unbelievable that they would have voted for this.
Right.
So, but they were not allowed to have the independence that they voted for in 2014 because the Ukrainian government continued to bomb them and commit other various acts of aggression. More coming up here. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. The strikes appear to have targeted residential areas and civilian infrastructure in several key locations around the country, including the capital Kiev, which was hit for the first time in months. Eversen's Trent Murray is there.
Seems that people are starting to make their way back out, head home after work. But we've spent much of the day in the bomb shelter of the building I'm in, just because the air raid sirens have been activated because of that Russian barrage of rockets. Now, we know that the first ones really hit around 8 a.m. local time. They struck a number of areas of the city, including a children's playground, a theatre that does orchestra and opera, and also a park. Now, this is just one of many places across Ukraine that these missiles hit. As you said, we also know missiles hit Kharkiv as well as Lviv, right in the far west of Ukraine near the Polish border. President Zelensky, as you might expect, has decried this attack, as saying Russia is acting as a terrorist state, as he described it.
Meanwhile, the missile strikes have drawn fierce criticism from European heads of state and the European Union, as FSN's Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
The European Union has described Russia's bombing raid on Ukraine as horrendous and a sign of desperation. European Council President Charles Michel described the attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure as war crimes, while Commission President von der Leyen said the strikes show that the Putin regime stands for brutality and terror. Russia fired over 80 cruise missiles into Ukraine on Monday, a move which Moscow said was in response to an attack which destroyed a vital bridge linking the annexed region of Crimea with mainland Russia. But Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte pushed back on the Kremlin's narrative, saying simply that the bombing raid was terrorism, not retaliation.
The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are warning a dark cloud is lingering over world economies as they begin their annual meetings. Central bankers, ministers of finance, company executives and academics are discussing solutions to inflation, supply chain disruptions and the risk of recession. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
In the first session of World Bank IMF autumn meetings, Kristalina Georgieva, IMF Managing Director, said that 1/3 of the global economy is soon likely to experience at least half a year of recession. Europe is reeling from an energy crisis, China's economy is flailing due to fallout from COVID policies and a property slump, and North America and other places are trying to tame inflation.
3 Americans, including the former US Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke, have been awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics. Their work on banks and financial crises was recognized by the Nobel Committee. The 3 winners published research in the 1980s that looked at how banks can help or hurt economies. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. If you're ready to start learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, you can go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started at the top of the page. And that is where you can learn some of the basics, some of the concepts that might be new to you, probably are if you haven't taken the time to look into cryptocurrency, like, for instance, decentralization and getting the governments and banks out of the world of money for the first time in our lifetimes, and many lifetimes, in fact, generations. It's a huge shift for the power of the individual, that is cryptocurrency. You can go and learn over at Bitcoin.com by clicking Get Started at the top of the page. You can also get their latest news headlines anytime you want over at news.bitcoin.com. You can buy your first cryptos through Bitcoin.com. And remember, you don't need to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can get 1%. You can get less than 1% of a Bitcoin if you want to. It's up to you how deep you want to go in. Of course, you shouldn't put in more than you can afford to lose because there obviously are risks involved. But it seems like over time, Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, at the very least, they have the tendency to go up over the years, whereas government money is not going to go up in value. It's going to keep buying less and less as they keep printing more and more out.
Bitcoin certainly fluctuates, and people should be aware of that. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, but as you mentioned, in the grand scheme of things, from what we can tell, it seems to trend upward.
And if it's that or the dollar is always going down.
Right, and speaking of fiat currencies and fluctuations, didn't the UK pound lose like 50% of its value in one day recently?
Oh my God, I did not hear that.
It had a huge drop. So, I mean, it's not just Bitcoin that can have a dramatic price drop. It can happen to the government monies too. So anyway, go to bitcoin.com, click Get Started to start learning. So, Arya, I don't know if there's more to say about this story that you have where the Duma member in Russia is inviting, essentially saying that U.S. states are welcome to apply for membership, is what it sounds like, in the Russian Federation.
This is from State Duma Deputy Alexander Tomachev. He was responding to an online poll that showed that some Americans wanted their states to break free from the United States.
Oh.
It doesn't say
and join Russia.
Right.
Ah, okay.
If Americans vote to secede some states from the country and express a desire to join Russia, Newsweek worded that in a very strange way. If Americans vote to secede from the country and express a desire to join Russia, then Moscow will consider it, Tomachev told Russia news site. Oof, not going to attempt it. The lawmaker said that the U.S. was beginning to decay and that its ally, the European Union, which also has provided strong military assistance to Ukraine, was, quote, bursting at its seams. I don't know about the European Union, but the United States, from what I can tell, it's definitely in a state of decay, economically more than any other, but culturally, everything just seems to be rotting.
The clock is ticking, it seems. Now, I do wonder, before you go on, what poll they are referring to. I don't think Newsweek, they don't happen to link to it or anything like that.
Sadly,
right?
they did not.
Okay.
I'm a little confused. So you're saying the guy from Duma didn't say and join Russia, but then Newsweek just added and join Russia?
He said if they want to secede and join Russia, then they would allow it. But the poll itself was just to secede from the United States. So he was like, hey, if you want to secede and also join Russia, we'll consider it. Tomachev said that this was the result of a failed American foreign policy, clearly, among many other failed policies. Such initiatives are a signal that the citizens of the United States are dissatisfied with their leadership and are ready to take extreme measures up to secession if the current policy of America continues, he said.
Wow, okay.
MustRegToday.ru also reported the news, noting that on social media, some 80% of New Hampshire residents said they wanted to break away from the United States.
Where the hell did
that? God. Well, it wasn't social media. It was the Union Leader, right?
Oh, the Union Leader poll?
Well, no, I'm just guessing.
I don't know.
That's the only one that went that high that I can recall seeing, but that was like a year ago. This is a new story, right? Like, this is fresh.
Did you know that they mentioned New Hampshire in this article?
No, I just saw the headline and was like, we got to do it. Got to do it, man.
Wow.
But it's mosreg.today, MOSREG today.ru, and that they don't link to it, but they do give that website, and that's evidently, they were the ones who reported that on social media. Some 80% of New Hampshire residents want to secede, and I'm happy to see New Hampshire getting that little shout out. We do want to secede. We don't want to join Russia.
Yeah, even if it's completely wrong, I mean, it's appearing in Newsweek, which, obviously they don't have the influence that they once did. I don't think they even publish a magazine anymore, if I recall correctly. I think they stopped that several years ago. But, presuming that this story gets passed around, people that read that are going to believe that it's true. Now, I am in favor of true news reporting, and I do not believe this to be true on the part of Newsweek, because essentially it's just lazy reporting. Newsweek is saying what this Russian site said. Newsweek did not actually verify the claim.
They didn't even attempt to verify it. They didn't say...
Did you pull up the poll and it's not the right number?
Well, I pulled up the MustReg Today site, but I haven't had a chance to really look and see where this is coming.
Because even if the poll didn't get to 80%, like at the end, maybe they just meant at one point it got
at 1 point. Yeah, it was over 80% at one point. I think it did drop down. But again, this was an unscientific website poll on the Union Leader website, which is the top newspaper in the state of New Hampshire. And obviously,
then what is the misreporting? I'm a little confused.
It's not really misreporting on the from the perspective of Newsweek, but it's lazy, and it makes it sound like it's truer than it is. It makes it sound like 80% of New Hampshire residents want to secede from the United States, and I love that.
Not true.
But it's definitely not true. like the words noting that on social media instead of like suggesting that, like they note it like it's a true statement, and Newsweek just took note of it.
And how would they, and it's not clear if they're even talking about the union leader. We're just presuming that that's what it was. Technically, the union leader isn't social media.
Yeah,
it's a newspaper that had an unscientific poll on the website. So what is the social media to which they are referring?
I mean, we were like, people on social media were sharing it like, hey, go
maybe that's it.
Vote on this.
But again,
that could seriously be it.
Yeah. We're talking about something that is, if not an entire year, several months old at this point. So it's very strange. But I'll take it.
Yeah, I'll absolutely take it. Any shout out in Newsweek like that.
Right, yeah, any media that wants to misrepresent the.
I don't want to encourage falsehoods.
Well, if they misrepresent, I'm not going to send them a correction in this case.
Fair enough.
If they want to misrepresent in our favor, if they misrepresent in the negative, they say it's only 1% or something, I'll send them a correction and say, okay, well, this poll that we did over the summers showed 29%. I will correct to the correct number, at least that we can tell. But yeah, I'll take it.
So apparently a comment underneath the social media poll, I've got to find this poll, said most of Oregon wants to leave Oregon. I support the big Idaho movement, and so should the people living in Texas, Florida, Idaho, and everywhere in between.
Yeah,
I support any state that wants to achieve statehood. Oh, that statement hurt my head. That's one of the things I don't like about the United States and the system we have here. The word state has just been completely butchered.
Yeah, because we are all states. We all have statehood.
Yeah, imagine saying something like that. I support any state that wants to achieve statehood. How flawed does your education and your understanding of the United States system have to be for you to say something like that? Like, I aspire all humans who want to achieve humanity. It's a silly thing to say.
Well, you said, Bunny, we are states, and we're not. We're humans. We're individuals.
Sorry, all the states are states.
And those are just ideas. I mean, states, the idea of a state is just an idea.
Well, they're not less than a state. They're not just a part of the United States and not their own state. They are their own states.
The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I'm just saying the whole idea of the state is something that needs to go away because it doesn't actually exist. More coming up.
Do you know the difference between erudite and pedantic? If you do, you're probably pedantic. But seriously, a surprising number of erudite people mispronounce erudite, which has 3 syllables, not 4. Say erudite, not erudite. Because you are judged by how you speak, you want to avoid common misstatements, especially if you're a job seeker. For instance, do you know the difference between imply and infer? Only a speaker can imply. Only a listener can infer. And when you say you'll be out of pocket, do you mean out of touch? Out of pocket means you're on your own dime, not yet reimbursed. And if anyone ever asks, why do you always answer a question with a question? You should reply, do I do that? Just kidding. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
The idea that politicians are leaders. Check your premises on that one.
Cutting proof.
Really? Would you really follow Barack Obama or George Bush? Would you really follow their every command? Would you follow their suggestions? Do you believe that politicians are somehow more knowledgeable than you are? That politicians are of a special group of people? They're a special little critter that for some reason is more enlightened or educated? Constantly you can hear talking heads refer to the authorities or our leaders in Washington, and it's just patently absurd. I mean, these people are failures at life. That's why they became politicians.
Right. I mean, there's so many of them are attorneys. The good attorneys make a
money.
whole bunch of money and retire with yachts. The unsuccessful ones go into politics.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Phones open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. What we just learned, and you didn't even know this until 10 minutes ago, Arya, is that the New Hampshire independence movement is getting press in Russia at this point with a news story that made it over to Newsweek. So first, a Russian website reports on it over at mosregtoday.ru. It's a completely Russian site. You have to use a Google Translate to have any idea what it's saying. But they reported on the New Hampshire independence movement and essentially made a statement through the State Duma Deputy Secretary or whatever, Alexander Tolmachev, who basically said that if U.S. states secede and then vote to join Russia, that they will consider it. So it sounds like they are open to the idea of annexing even more territory. Now, of course, as you pointed out, that's not what we are interested in here in New Hampshire.
Maybe they're just trying to make a point to say, America and Ukraine don't want to accept that this part of Ukraine, voted to become part of Russia, but we would accept their parts if they wanted to become independent, and we'd even invite them into Russia, possibly.
He's just saying they'll consider it.
I definitely think it's trolling.
For sure. But it's
good trolling.
Yeah, it is resulting in some extra press for the New Hampshire independence movement, which is funny because I was just talking with Matt Santanastasso, who was one of the two main sponsors of the legislation last year that unfortunately did not get passed, but that would have put the question of secession to a ballot vote. Had it passed, it would have gone on the ballot here in New Hampshire, and the people of New Hampshire would have had a chance to actually have their say on this. Hopefully we'll get to see that happen someday. It didn't happen this year, but Matt was asking if I thought it was worth it. Was what he did putting his legislative career on the line, because he may not win his re-election campaign here this year, he said, was it worth it? And I told him absolutely it was.
I mean, that's not a question we can really answer, right? He's the one who has to decide whether or not it was worth it.
Well, he's asking for input, and I gave him my input. He asked
said he's leaning towards it was worth it, but it's just been the question.
And I gave him examples of why I thought it was worth it, because it got a conversation started.
And I said the same thing. I said it went viral even on Twitter. National divorce was trending on Twitter, and I really don't think it would have if in the conversation that's been started all over the country, I don't think would have been started without New Hampshire having this bill. And now apparently it's made it all the way to Russia.
Right. So you got the press out of it. You got the conversation started, people considering the idea for the first time. You've got there's now a New Hampshire Independence PAC that's been founded to help fundraise and send money to candidates that support independence. That never existed before. The Foundation for New Hampshire Independence did exist. It was formed in 2012, but it was kind of just laying moribund. It was just quiet and not doing anything.
Right.
And now it's much more active, and they're the ones that created the poll that we were referring to, which was 29% in New Hampshire, showing that they do support the idea of New Hampshire being an independent nation. 52% of Republicans in New Hampshire saying they support New Hampshire being an independent nation. We have those poll numbers because of the efforts of the foundation, which are now, renewed because of CACR 32. And of course, Karen came out to attack the state representatives recently. They're an actual Karen. You can go to nhexit.us and see the video footage where she tried to get the state reps who voted for the ability to vote on independence. She tried to get them essentially defrocked and taken out of office and make it so they can't run for office again. And Karen got shut down.
And not only did she get shut down, but what came out of that was the AG's office saying this does not constitute insurrection because there wasn't any violence.
Right. So now
there
there's
must be violence for it to be insurrection.
Right. So there's now an official on-the-record opinion by the New Hampshire Attorney General's office saying, nope, this would not be insurrection. Right. Which is, of course, the claim of the Karen and the people like her that are saying, it's a revolution, it's insurrection.
And that just proves
violence.
that Brody Deshays was straight up misinforming the people who first voted on this.
Of course he was.
Well, I already knew that, but it's just proof, even not from their own
That's the state rep
system.
that was most against independence,
and
most vocal.
I understand the perspective of wanting to measure whether or not this was worth it based on the results, because how else can you measure whether or not something was worth it except by the results? But when you're doing something for principled reasons, the results are sort of secondary to one's internal sense of having done the right thing. So
Agreed.
what was it worth it to do the right thing? Almost always.
Yeah, how did you feel about it, really?
Right.
Did it feel right to you?
Even if absolutely nothing had happened, it had never gone anywhere, and it had died, and he had lost his career as a state rep as a result of it, it would, for me, I would say, yes, that was still worth it because you made this principled stand. You stood by something you believed in.
Right.
And that matters. It matters to be a person who's willing to do that. And of course, we did have all of these monumental successes on top of that, including this mention in Newsweek, which would not have happened if it wasn't for Matt Santonastasso.
And the others who co-sponsored the legislation.
Right, but Matt was the one who asked.
He was the one that got the ball rolling. Yeah, that's absolutely true. So the reason he was asking us that question was because I think that the politicos are trying to get to him.
Yep.
The people that are trying to shame him for this, or trying to say it's too soon.
Or he's hurting the whole Republican,
the Liberty
Caucus.
Yeah, so there's
overall
people
hurting them.
whispering in his ear about how he's made a mistake and that he shouldn't have done this, and so he needed some support. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, this is yet another example. I was talking to him about the ripples, right? Like you throw the rock in the lake and you get the ripples that spread out from that. I think we're only really starting to experience those. Right? Like there was some initial effects, and then there was some more effects, and now we're seeing the initial effects leading to newer effects, right? So it turns out that what the Russian, whatever this is, probably a governmental, because almost all the news in Russia is from the government.
It was a state news agency, I think Newsweek said. Mosregtoday.ru.
In this report, I did find the actual report. It turns out that they are actually citing the social media account of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, who asked a question on, looks like October 3rd of this year.
Oh, so that's pretty recent.
Yeah. Let's try this then. And this was apparently a reply to Elon Musk. The will of the people who live in the New Hampshire should decide whether they're part of America. And it was 79% said yes to that poll. It might have been like a Russian translation or something. I don't know.
Maybe it's because Americans usually call it the Ukraine, so they're calling it the New Hampshire.
Be.
I don't know.
Yeah, because it was in relation to something Musk had posted about Ukraine and
it also
Russia.
doesn't mean that that New Hampshire people necessarily support secession. Just that they should have the right to make
decide.
that determination.
Yep, that is
but
a different
again,
question.
I'm not going to send the correction to Newsweek, as you said.
And the odds are that these aren't even necessarily people that live in New Hampshire. They're just the followers of the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Twitter account. So
Or
those
anyone
people,
that saw it.
Yeah, those people could be anywhere.
I'm not going to send them a correction, but I am going to send this to Matt Santanastasso because, as you pointed out, this mention wouldn't exist if not for the New Hampshire independence movement, which was spearheaded by him and
Mike Sylvia.
I can't believe I was
Free
spacing on the
Stater.
name.
Another great Free Stater who is no longer going to be a state rep. He lost the primary, unfortunately. So while, as you pointed out, Bonnie, the big bad on the pro-government side, Brody DeShays, lost his primary. One of our big guys on the pro-independent side lost his
almost
as well.
assuredly not because of secession. It was because of the stupid gun stock thing, and the governor put out a, get that one. Don't let him become because he was uncovering that the governor was money laundering through Gunstock, aka a mountain ski resort that is owned by the government in New Hampshire, because that's apparently
crazy.
normal here.
Yeah, so I think you're probably right about that.
Well, I had lots of friends that were door knocking from Mike Sylvia, and they said that people who freaked out on them, like, I hate Mike Sylvia, was all about Gunstock and those Free Staters ruining Gunstock.
I mean, that's probably true, but for a lot of them, but we'll never know for sure.
You can't know.
And that
true.
sucks.
But it's not over. Things are still going forward here, and that I think is important. And one of the other things that was pointed out to Matt, I think it was actually Jeremy Kaufman from the Free State Project, that told him he knew personally of at least 15 people that had moved here to New Hampshire who moved here citing CACR 32, the New Hampshire independence referendum. So it's getting people's attention. It's resulting in people moving here. Our very own Reed Coverdale is another example of this. He's our co-host on Thursday nights now on Free Talk Live. He hosts his own show called Naturalist Capitalist. He was a truck driver cross country, but he was living in Utah. He's a New Hampshire native who had left New Hampshire and had moved out to Utah and was driving out of there. But when he heard about the New Hampshire independence movement, that was what tipped his scales enough to come back to New Hampshire. So he migrated back as a result of CACR 32. That was the issue that motivated him. So again, if we're already seeing more than a dozen movers within a year from this bill being filed, how many more are going to be coming in 2023?
Definitely worth it.
The number 603-283-6160. Hour 2's coming up. You can join us here on Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. The strikes appear to have targeted residential areas and civilian infrastructure in several key locations around the country, including the capital Kiev, which was hit for the first time in months. Eversen's Trent Murray is there.
Seems that people are starting to make their way back out, head home after work. But we've spent much of the day in the bomb shelter of the building I'm in, just because the air raid sirens have been activated because of that Russian barrage of rockets. Now, we know that the first ones really hit around 8 a.m. local time. They struck a number of areas of the city, including a children's playground, a theatre that does orchestra and opera, and also a park. Now, this is just one of many places across Ukraine that these missiles hit. As you said, we also know missiles hit Kharkiv as well as Lviv, right in the far west of Ukraine near the Polish border. President Zelensky, as you might expect, has decried this attack, as saying Russia is acting as a terrorist state, as he described it.
Meanwhile, the missile strikes have drawn fierce criticism from European heads of state and the European Union, as FSN's Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
The European Union has described Russia's bombing raid on Ukraine as horrendous and a sign of desperation. European Council President Charles Michel described the attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure as war crimes, while Commission President von der Leyen said the strikes show that the Putin regime stands for brutality and terror. Russia fired over 80 cruise missiles into Ukraine on Monday, a move which Moscow said was in response to an attack which destroyed a vital bridge linking the annexed region of Crimea with mainland Russia. But Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte pushed back on the Kremlin's narrative, saying simply that the bombing raid was terrorism, not retaliation.
The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are warning a dark cloud is lingering over world economies as they begin their annual meetings. Central bankers, ministers of finance, company executives and academics are discussing solutions to inflation, supply chain disruptions and the risk of recession. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
In the first session of World Bank IMF autumn meetings, Kristalina Georgieva, IMF Managing Director, said that 1/3 of the global economy is soon likely to experience at least half a year of recession. Europe is reeling from an energy crisis, China's economy is flailing due to fallout from COVID policies and a property slump, and North America and other places are trying to tame inflation.
3 Americans, including the former US Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke, have been awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics. Their work on banks and financial crises was recognised by the Nobel Committee. The 3 winners published research in the 1980s that looked at how banks can help or hurt economies. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at the Arctic Circle Assembly that will be taking place later this week in the Icelandic capital Reykjavik. It will see thousands of delegates and other observers gathering for an annual event that is taking on increasing global importance as climate change impacts the Arctic Circle. 4 million people live there, most of them indigenous, but the melting of the glaciers and the warming of the waters may eventually open the Arctic up to the rest of the world in ways that were once unimaginable. Bob McMahon is with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations.
Is the Arctic under some sort of threat to be an arena of military conflict? A lot of experts say that's still a low possibility, but there have also been reports of Russia violating airspace of countries in the Arctic, including Finland, which is untapped to be a NATO member. So there's concern about a whole host of issues. Russia and Ukraine, as in many other fora, looms large, but there are also a lot of issues that are on the agenda that could still get some meaningful discussion, whether it's commerce, whether it's the environment, resource exploitation and exploration. Again, though, Russia looms large. More than 50% of Arctic coastline is in Russian territory.
Top-level representatives at the Assembly will come from a variety of countries, including the US, Canada and the Nordic nations, with security, climate change, indigenous rights and technology on the agenda. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. Residential areas and civilian infrastructure was targeted, including in the capital, Kiev. The missile strikes have drawn fierce criticism from European heads of state, the European Union and other Western countries. The International Monetary Fund is warning that a dark cloud is lingering over world economies as they begin their annual meetings. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Images of destruction are flooding in, and the worst isn't over. Experts warn that Hurricane Ashley could strike as many as 8 bars throughout the day. Her Cinco de Mayo plans, combined with all the recent drama with Scott, have created perfect conditions for Hurricane Ashley to cause a lot of damage this afternoon and well into the evening. Here's a look at Ashley's path of destruction so far. At 11 a.m., she landed on Foster Street, moving from O'Murphy's to the Blue Iguana, hitting the place that does the mini pizzas the hardest. And she's expected to merge with other high-pressure systems, including BFFs Jessica and Christy, within the next hour. Forecasters predict that some areas could see all 3 grown women obnoxiously shouting, wearing sombreros and fake mustaches as early as 5 p.m. The whirlwind might not die down until close to 2:30 a.m. when she's expected to be kicked out of a reggae bar called the Lion's Den for saying something racist. Our thoughts are with everyone in her path.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join the show here and bring up whatever you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight is Ian.
It's Bonnie.
Aria. And Aria.
Yes, and you can bring up anything. That is the point of the program here. We have a lot, as always, to discuss, including bugs. This whole big push.
Poor Conan, he's not here for this.
Yeah, I am sad that we're leaving Conan out of this one because this is definitely one of his big issues.
But he hates hearing about it, so.
But Bonnie, you had a story tonight about this push that the people in like the World Economic Forum and big politician industry
Hollywood
types,
now.
Hollywood. Is promoting the eating of bugs. Didn't you tell me you saw, was it yesterday or today, that apparently Nicole Kidman, was it?
Yeah, it's from this article.
Okay. Apparently, so Nicole Kidman, famous actress, is apparently now pushing bug eating in a video where she eats some kind of worm.
She eats some mealworms and some horned worms, which are big green worms.
So she's not even processing the things, she's just like eating them?
There, she says in them, she has like them in little chopsticks, and she says it's still alive. Or
She
I
ate
can't
it
do
alive.
her accent.
Oh wow! Because
Yep.
normally,
I mean, it's like it's supposed to be like, oh, this is better for the environment, but you're also killing a thing with your teeth. That's horrible.
Normally when this stuff has been pushed, at least from what we've seen so far, because again, we have covered this a few times with Conan on Tuesday nights. Normally, you see it's like a fried thing.
Yeah, they process it.
They're trying to make it more palatable for people, frying it and putting breading on it or something, right? Like they're trying to pass this off. They're grinding up the bugs and they're putting it into flour.
Bug butter at one point.
Ew.
Yeah, and then there was a company in Canada that had like a flour that they'd made from the bugs that was being used in the snacks. They were like making the equivalent of like Cheetos or some sort of like puffed, what would normally be like a puffed rice snack or some puffed corn snack, but they did it with bugs, and you wouldn't know unless you read the ingredients on the back side of the bag. So there seems to be different approaches. There's the approach of let's hide the bugs in the product and hope people don't notice. Then there's the approach of, well, yeah, you're eating bugs, but look, it's fried and we put some salt on it, so it won't be as bad. And now you're saying they're just coming out with video of Hollywood stars eating bugs while they're still alive.
Yeah, she says that it's like her secret talent or something. Or not her secret talent, but she said one of my many talents
is eating bugs.
Yeah.
Just learn to play guitar.
Well, she's at the end of her career, right? Like, when's the last time you saw a Nicole Kidman movie?
Bombshell.
When was that?
I've never seen
2019.
Bombshell anyway.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't even know she was still doing movies.
It was about Fox News.
So her solution for resurrecting her dying career is to eat mealworms?
Apparently.
I think that it's part of one of those things that they got to do to stay in the in crowd, the eyes wide shut crowd.
She was in that movie, by the way.
She's washed up, right? As you pointed out, she's at the tail end of her career. This movie
She's
that
just
you pointed
old.
out,
She's
that's
not washed up as in like nobody likes her, cares about her, or anything like that. She's just getting old. But
Did you
she's still
watch the
good in this
video?
video. Yeah.
Did it gross you out?
But I mean,
yeah.
I'm not saying that she's just getting old, but she's at the end of her career. As you pointed out, the last movie she was in that was popular, I guess, was 2019. That was 3 years ago, and I've never seen it or heard about it.
I don't really like follow her or anything like that, so maybe she's been in more things. That's just the last thing I could think of.
That's fair.
My friend is obsessed with the Bombshell soundtrack. Yeah, the soundtrack, which is a little, random. But some people really like it.
Movie.
Some people are like big fans of that movie. I thought it was amazing when I went and saw it. It was so funny.
I've never heard of it.
So,
But I've heard of Eating Bugs, and I've heard of Nicole Kidman. Now, wasn't she also like Catwoman or something? Wasn't she a Catwoman?
No, I don't think so.
What was the big movie she was in?
She was in Eyes Wide Shut.
90s movies.
She was in the Body Snatchers, right? The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or one of those.
I don't think so.
She was in one of those where you can't tell if they're infected yet until you start talking to or whatever. That one of those. I thought it was called The Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I'll have to look on IMDb.
She was married to Tom Cruise.
They show in this video, I'm watching some of the video where they're showing like the bugs just squirming around. Like it's disgusting.
She says it's very juicy and watery. I can't quite explain the flavor, but it's good. It's refreshing. When she eats the big blue-green horned worm.
I don't
believe it.
I don't want to hear about bugs being like nature's fruit gusher.
I know, right?
She's like, it's so juicy. Okay.
You would want it to be anything but that. Like you'd want to not even notice it if you had to eat bugs.
That juice is like
guts.
Yeah, and blood and gross. So
what do we need to know about this, Bonnie?
He starts off saying, the World Economic Forum hates you. To fully understand why the elite wants us to eat bugs, we must first wrap our heads around one important fact. They're looking to redefine what it means to be a human on the earth. They believe that we have too many freedoms and that we consume too many resources. This is thevigilanttcitizen.com, or just vigilanttcitizen.com, by the way. At the forefront of this movement is the World Economic Forum. In short, they see us as cattle. Other than restricting every aspect of our lives, they also want us to consume much fewer resources. This is where the bug-eating agenda comes in. Using buzzwords such as sustainability, the global elite is defining what is a responsible diet while increasingly shaming those who eat meat. And he shows a little graph that they made showing how much greenhouse gases are emitted when you eat an insect or a chicken or a pig or a cow, and the most is cow, like it shows the number 2,800, I don't know, in grams, and it's only 2 grams of greenhouse gases when you eat an insect.
That's all well and good, but these people lecturing us are like Leonardo DiCaprio flying around in private jets and stuff, so I really don't care what they have to say.
Yeah, I don't either. And I really don't care about the greenhouse gases because if the world gets warmer, it's fine by me.
If you think cows are bad for the environment, you probably live in a city far away from where cows live peacefully with the earth and have forever.
I don't know if cows are good or bad for the environment, but I also don't really care. I mean, as you pointed out, if these greenhouse gases, is carbon dioxide in particular, if they get out of control and there's too much or whatever, I mean, we already know how nature takes care of these things. It will produce more trees, and the trees will become more efficient at processing carbon dioxide, and at the same time, humans can't breathe carbon dioxide and will be uncomfortable out there in the heat, so the human population will dwindle and will become less able to produce greenhouse gases, and in the grand scheme of things, yes, it will solve itself without me having to eat bugs.
What else, Bonnie?
Well, so next is the video of Nicole Kidman, which we can't really play on the air because it's more something to watch than to listen to.
And I don't want to watch it or listen to it.
He says, a big movie star was enlisted to semi-seductively eat insects on camera to convince you to do the same. This is cringy propaganda 101. And
I don't know if I could call her a big movie star at this point.
She's pretty big. I mean, she's just not that so much anymore. Like people,
I've got her IMDb pulled up here, and I guess there's some big name movies here, but like none of them none of them are rated much higher than 7. So it looks like she's in a lot of crap.
I think mostly if she was married to Tom Cruise. Or if not married, they dated.
Okay.
It also has a video here of a movie star named Lupita Nyong'o. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. And she was the mom / the main character in Us, the Jordan Peele movie. And it shows her eating bugs. She's eating it on like a slice of fruit. Looks kind of like a mango or something.
Oh,
and
don't do that to a mango.
Ants all over it. And then she eats the bite of it. And she says, oh, it's really good. It's really, really good.
There's ants on it?
Like dead ants, but all over it. And that's how it's like, seasoned. Which you could just eat a mango. A mango is so much better than eating bugs like that. But if they're not allowing you any other protein, I guess that's how you gotta swallow down
you
some
can eat
ants.
legumes, man, like peas and beans and stuff if you need protein.
The number here is 603-283-6160. If you want to comment on the bug-eating propaganda that is apparently ramping up now with Hollywood celebrities being recruited, apparently by the WEF. Now, they haven't really tied in exactly how the WEF, the World Economic Forum, is a part of this, so I hope we'll learn more about that coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. We're talking about the bug-eating propaganda that is cranking up now with Nicole Kidman in a video that came out a couple years ago. So this isn't
okay.
New. This thing has been going on, but it's getting reported on VigilantCitizen.com. It's a site that Bonnie and I have been aware of for probably the last decade, roughly. Interesting, kind of eye-opening site.
I've been reading it since 2011.
Yeah. Very, very interesting content there, and he's sort of. It's a more. The article that you have is more about the push.
An
to eat
overview
bugs.
of all the propaganda. So sorry, I did think it was new because this is a new article, but.
Yeah, the video is a little bit from back in 2018, January of 2018. It's got over 1 million views. The original version was on Vanity Fair's channel, and it is presented as secret talent theater, where they're claiming that they have some of the biggest actors and actresses showing off their secret talents, from Oprah Winfrey cleaning up dog poop and Emma Stone hopping on a pogo stick, Natalie Portman translating Hebrew slang, and Dakota Johnson sticking things in her teeth. The cover stars of Vanity Fair's The Hollywood Issue have more than a few tricks up their sleeve.
Sounds like completely pointless and easy to do things.
It's
like
garbage.
I pick up dog poop every day.
It sounds like the Guinness Book of World Records or the Guinness World Records over the last decade or so, when, you know, they didn't have any other way of making money than to charge people $5,000 to get proof that they participated in. They have this world record in like most hugs given in 30 seconds or
Is that
whatever.
how they do it? They charge people to get their listing in?
Right. Well,
Wow.
I mean, they're obsolete, and they're like, we got to continue making
make
money
money.
somehow. So you.
Now you can be in for any old stupid crap you want to pay them
I can
for.
run, 100 meters faster than anyone else while wearing clogs or whatever.
Yeah, this sounds like a bunch of throwaway videos with the exception of the bug-eating one. It sounds almost like that the bug-eating one is sort of nestled in here as this subversive propaganda, whereas the rest of it's just useless.
I think we could say that
Hollywood
about all
trash.
of them, though. Like the Oprah Winfrey or whoever it was cleaning up dog poop is a subversive reminder to clean up after your dog or whatever.
That's not, but you don't need to be subversive about that. That's like a believable thing
Like
that
Oprah
people
Winfrey,
need to do.
she could come out with the ad just like, hey, you need to pick up after your dog because there's no poop fairy, as the signs say.
Yeah, I mean, these
It
other
wouldn't be,
topics
like,
are
secret.
just useless. They're not going to help any sort of agenda, but then the one that helps the agenda is nestled in there with this video about eating bugs. Nicole Kidman in a very ornately furnished, or not furnished room. It's just her sitting at a table, but there's like fancy drapes behind her. It's very, very nicely laid out. It's, letting you know that this is what the rich and the famous are doing. This is what the elites are into, and you too will soon have an opportunity to join them by eating bugs. But Bonnie, you had the story from Vigilant Citizen.
But they
that you
also
were
eat
sharing.
fish eggs. I mean, they can keep their rich person nonsense.
I mean, I've had some fish eggs on sushi.
Okay,
I mean,
fair.
some sushis have fish eggs on them.
That's true.
Says other than using celebrities, the elites, which is what he calls like, World Economic Forum types,
The people who want to rule the world.
they like to use the quote-unquote news. As you probably know, a great number of quote-unquote news articles are actually thinly veiled attempts at propaganda. So he shows a few. This is from the BBC, April 25th, maybe this year, it doesn't say. Lab-grown meat and insects good for planet and health. He says there are a few things to note about the headline above. First, the push for synthetic meat is part of the same exact agenda.
Okay, now this I'm interested in hearing about, because to me, synthetic meat just on its face doesn't seem like a problem. But then again, I'm somebody who doesn't really care about genetically modified things. Like,
What do they mean by synthetic meat?
I think lab-grown meat is the kind where they're using like stem cells or whatever to grow meat, and never tried and probably wouldn't try that because it's creepy and gross.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to that.
And a lot of people aren't, but I wouldn't because it's gross and creepy.
I mean, if it feeds more people, I'm all for it.
Right, that's the idea. Is the concept would be that, okay, well, instead of having to slaughter animals, you could just grow the exact same meat, maybe better quality.
That's so unnatural. There has to be ramifications that wouldn't work. Like, there are so many bad
from
things.
Stem cells, right? So, I mean, by definition,
I just said stem cells. I don't know.
Okay. I don't know how they're making it either, but I would prefer to eat if it's quote real meat. If it's actual meat, I would prefer to eat meat that did not come from a murdered animal versus meat that did.
I don't know. I just think that there would be really bad ramifications on your health for doing something so unnatural, and there already are for the way that we treat animals and the soil. We're already so much sicker than people used to be because we're putting all these horrible nitrate fertilizers on things instead of just using cow poop or
but humans are
poop.
living longer than ever. And people who are in their 40s,
because they're hiked up on things, not because they're actually healthy.
I don't know. People in their 40s and 50s look like people in their 20s and 30s from a few decades ago.
I don't really think I believe that. Like, first of all, there's a big internet conspiracy where lots of people are saying, why did people in their 20s look so old? Even back just in like the 70s and like when we first got video cameras. And I've always thought that as a kid. I've always thought, why do people in like 80s movies, they're supposed to be teenagers and they look like my mom and dad. They look so old.
Well, that's because they were hiring actors
it's not
in their
just
20s.
That. It's not just that. Like, there'll be videos of people in high school, like actual videos of actual high schools, and it'll be like, why do these people look grown up? They look so much older than they do what people do now.
But on the other side, Bonnie, there's people who say that teenagers look older now than they used to because of all the alleged human growth hormone or whatever, the hormones that they're feeding the cows and they're drinking the milk or whatever. Kids are supposedly hitting puberty at earlier ages.
Well, there's like people wearing makeup where they wouldn't have been, so they look like they're older teenagers and stuff like that. But I think this is different. I think it's weird the way that people used to look like they were haggard and, like used up in their teens, and now people don't look like that.
In my experience, it seems to be true, at least on the average. I mean,
what's true?
That people
What's she saying?
look younger than they used to.
Okay.
Or I don't know how to phrase that correctly.
I used to always say, why is like the hot girl in this 80s movie, why does she look like she's like in her 30s? Like, not in like a good way either.
She probably was in her 30s.
But they could be supposed to be like in their 20s. Why couldn't they get a 20-year-old actor? And the actress would be in her 20s. Like, I can't think of an example because I hate the 80s. Like, I don't want to just sit around watching 80s movies.
I mean, you might be right. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what you guys think out there. The number is 603-283-6160. And maybe you're right about the lab-grown meat. I think it's early to really say what the health ramifications are going to be of this. There are a lot of people who look at genetically modified foods and they call them frankenfoods and, oh my God, it's a bad thing. And
well, the other thing, the other kind of synthetic meat isn't just, like stem cells or whatever, however they do that, like grown. It's just stuff that's not meat, packaged as like, an alternative to meat.
You're talking about like the vegetarian crap,
like
right?
Beyond Burgers and stuff. And now I saw an article the other day, Beyond Burger may like be bad for you. We're just finding out.
Possibly. I think it'll be interesting to see, though. I know you're going to end up probably seeing taste tests where people won't be able to tell the difference, that kind of thing, between lab-grown meat and normal meat. And it is going to be a big attraction to folks like Arya who are definitely of a preference of not slaughtering animals. Now, on the downside, if the society goes towards the lab-grown meat and slaughtered animals becomes a very, very small minority, it actually will result in fewer animals in those species existing. Like, the reason why cows and chickens, there's so many of them, is because, well, we like the way they taste. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. The strikes appear to have targeted residential areas and civilian infrastructure in several key locations around the country, including the capital Kiev, which was hit for the first time in months. Eversen's Trent Murray is there.
Seems that people are starting to make their way back out, head home after work. But we've spent much of the day in the bomb shelter of the building I'm in, just because the air raid sirens have been activated because of that Russian barrage of rockets. Now, we know that the first ones really hit around 8 a.m. local time. They struck a number of areas of the city, including a children's playground, a theatre that does orchestra and opera, and also a park. Now, this is just one of many places across Ukraine that these missiles hit. As you said, we also know missiles hit Kharkiv as well as Lviv, right in the far west of Ukraine near the Polish border. President Zelensky, as you might expect, has decried this attack, as saying Russia is acting as a terrorist state, as he described it.
Meanwhile, the missile strikes have drawn fierce criticism from European heads of state and the European Union, as FSN's Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
The European Union has described Russia's bombing raid on Ukraine as horrendous and a sign of desperation. European Council President Charles Michel described the attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure as war crimes, while Commission President von der Leyen said the strikes show that the Putin regime stands for brutality and terror. Russia fired over 80 cruise missiles into Ukraine on Monday, a move which Moscow said was in response to an attack which destroyed a vital bridge linking the annexed region of Crimea with mainland Russia. But Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte pushed back on the Kremlin's narrative, saying simply that the bombing raid was terrorism, not retaliation.
The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are warning a dark cloud is lingering over world economies as they begin their annual meetings. Central bankers, ministers of finance, company executives and academics are discussing solutions to inflation, supply chain disruptions and the risk of recession. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
In the first session of World Bank IMF autumn meetings, Kristalina Georgieva, IMF Managing Director, said that 1/3 of the global economy is soon likely to experience at least half a year of recession. Europe is reeling from an energy crisis, China's economy is flailing due to fallout from COVID policies and a property slump, and North America and other places are trying to tame inflation.
3 Americans, including the former US Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke, have been awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics. Their work on banks and financial crises was recognized by the Nobel Committee. The 3 winners published research in the 1980s that looked at how banks can help or hurt economies. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones open and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Bonnie, Aria in the studio tonight. And, of course, by the way, the inflation numbers for the month of September are expected out this week. That's probably going to be on Wednesday. I wouldn't get my hopes up too much that you'll see a dramatic decrease. And, of course, even if you do see a decrease in the official number, it still means prices are going up, just at a slightly lower clip than before. Of course, it could go up as well. Who knows? Inflation is definitely getting worse, and everybody's feeling it when it comes to buying things at the store. So what do you do? How do you shift from the current status quo to something that puts you more in control of your resources and your wealth? Well, savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with bullionmax.com. You can buy direct from bullionmax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. And now you can get one of their most popular products, the Goldback, which is in stock, but supplies are going fast. The new Wyoming Goldbacks are now available. They're gorgeous. And, of course, you can still get Utah and New Hampshire and Nevada. Those are the 4 states that are available. And I don't know which ones may or may not be sold out at this moment. I didn't check just before we went on the air, but you can go and see it for yourself by going to bullionmax.com/FTL. Goldbacks, if you don't know, are beautiful interchangeable gold money that you can carry in your wallet made of real gold. I carry them in my wallet. I love offering people the Goldback as payment. It always brings up a conversation in a lot of cases. It's a great outreach tool. They're fun to tip with. I like to leave them as an additional tip, so I like to tip well in cash and then ask the waiter or waitress, hey, do you like gold? And usually it stops them dead in their tracks because they don't get asked questions like that by customers. And oops, sorry about that, Aria.
No, sorry. It's an unusual question, and who can say no to that? Especially when you whip it out and it's actually this beautiful. Like, hey,
I think
you
there
like
was
gold?
one person.
I was like, do I like gold? What do you
Yeah.
mean by that? Like, yeah, I like gold,
right?
but they don't expect to get paid in it or anything.
Yeah, it's. I think I've only ever had one person turn it down. I think almost everybody that I've offered it to.
Who the hell turns down gold?
A dumb
It's a
teenage
young
girl.
person, yeah. So anyway, bullionmax.com/FTL. You can get your Goldbacks there. And by the way, they got all the usual like ounces and ounces of silver and gold and all kinds of a huge variety of gold and silver products. So if you're just looking for gold and silver to stack in a safe, you probably don't want to get the Goldback for that. Goldbacks are for using. Goldbacks are for spending and sharing. But check them out over at bullionmax.com/FTL. As we continue here, Bonnie, you were telling us a story about Nicole Kidman, or this one aspect of it, the World Economic Forum recruiting big Hollywood celebrities, including the one of the stars of the movie Us, to eat bugs on camera in order to normalize the idea of consuming insects. And in the video with Nicole Kidman, she even eats some of these bugs alive and claims that they're exquisite, among other claims.
I'm just going to take her word for it, and
not try it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They may be the best thing ever, but it's a bug, right? And I'm all for doing, I don't want to say gross things. I'm all for that sort of gross out mentality. I don't personally do it, but I like it.
You like a good horror movie, for instance.
I find it enjoyable. I have a coworker who will do stuff like that, who will eat like pickle flavored jelly beans or whatever, or pickle flavored cotton candy, or just generally disgusting things like that. And I ordered a dehydrated tarantula, and he's going to eat one of the legs, and it's going to be gross.
You're going to eat some of it?
I'm not going to eat any of it.
Well,
No.
you said he's going to eat one of the legs, so I thought you meant I'm going to eat the rest of it.
No, I'm going to watch him eat one of the eggs, the legs.
Now, is it a thing to just eat the leg, or do some people eat the entire tarantula?
If he wants to eat the entire tarantula, I'm not going to stop him. But I don't think I
Those
could
things
bring
are
myself to do it.
Thick, and furry.
Yeah. So is the leg, though, right? And you got to break it off, and then
Is he going to eat it raw or cook it or something?
I don't know how that come. I guess they're.
Has he done this before and is like
not with a
confident about it?
tarantula?
Okay.
If they're dehydrated, you probably can't just like cook them, but he could dip it in something, make it less
some of
gross.
these bugs are fried, for instance, so that's another option.
But, I like that sort of thing. It amuses me
But this does
to
not
watch other
amuse
people do. No, I mean, it amuses me. Like if she was doing it for the gross out factor, like they do on like Fear Factor or whatever. Watch me eat these Madagascar hissing cockroaches or whatever. But she's like, no, I love this. This is great.
Yeah, she seems like a lie for one thing. Like,
Yeah, that's the part
so
that.
good.
Yeah, I don't enjoy that. But if she was like, hey guys, for $5, I'll eat this bug. Like, okay, you have my attention.
Yeah, I didn't watch the full video. I do have it pulled up here. I know you said you didn't want to even hear it, and I did play some of it during the break. It didn't cause you to keel over or anything, so I may play some of this because at one point
I don't object.
At one point in this video, it appeared as though she reacted before she even tasted the bug. So it seemed very fake. the way this thing has been set up. But let's continue, Bonnie, with your story about this, because it's more than just Nicole Kidman. This is just one aspect.
He's talking about the general propaganda that's popping up everywhere. So he read a headline from a BBC claiming that eating insects is good for the planet and health. Then there's another one here from The Economist saying edible insects and lab-grown meat are on the menu. And he just says, that's just pointing out that they're promoting it in the news. And he says, of course, the elite knows that very well that indoctrination is most effective on young people. It is during their formative years that humans adopt habits that will follow them for the rest of their lives. For this reason, the bug-eating agenda is infiltrating schools worldwide. In the following video, children are temporarily allowed to remove their masks to eat crickets. They're creating a compliant WEF-friendly generation. We can't really play the video, but the next thing is a poster that Ian saw, and I showed it to Ian before. It was also on Vigil Citizen.
This is appearing in schools in California, right?
You know how there's lots of posters on the wall in schools? They'll say, like,
propaganda.
I before E, except after C, or whatever. And this one has 10 reasons you should eat bugs. Do you want to hear the 10 reasons?
This is for kids, little
and it has
elementary school.
Little kid cartoons of like kids of all different colors.
But this is dangerous, right? Because there are bugs everywhere, and you don't want 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds walking around, grabbing random bugs and eating them.
That's a good point.
Put it in your mouth.
Yeah, you're right. There's things like wasps, but also just like a bug that you don't know what it's been
that's
exposed
a great point,
to.
Aria.
Like, I would have to fact check this because I don't think a school would actually do, as evil as they are, there's too much risk of lawsuits involved here. Like my kid, is allergic to yellow jackets and bees, and they ate this bee because the school poster told them to.
Well, you can look it up. It says bugsfordinner.com.
The bugs, the number 4?
No.
Well, that doesn't mean it appears in schools. That's the only part that I find unlikely.
It says it's plastered in California public schools. Do you want to hear the 10 reasons?
Bugsfordinner.com does not exist.
I do want to kind of hear the 10 reasons, though.
1, lots of kids are eating bugs. 2 billion people eat bugs. That's nearly 1/3 of the world's population.
Yeah, well, if 2 billion people jumped off a bridge, would you do it?
They're also likely the least wealthy, the most poor of the world's population. People that are literally scraping to eat anything that they possibly can, and so bugs are on the menu because it's an option.
Says number 2, you can educate others. You can teach people that there are at least 10 great reasons to eat bugs. Number 3 is they're tasty. Bugs are roasted, and that makes them crunchy. They can be flavored and eaten as snacks. They can even be covered in chocolate. 4, bugs can't make us sick like meat can. Meat can carry disease. There's little chance of someone becoming ill from eating bugs. 5,
little chance. But there's still a chance.
I don't know that many people that just get sick from eating meat anyway.
Are they saying that if you don't cook the meat properly, or if you leave it sit for 2 weeks or something after, because obviously it doesn't stay forever, right? Like, it's going to go bad if you don't put it in the freezer.
And people get food poisoning all the time, but
I'm sure there's some kind of bug that is poisonous if you eat it. They can't all be edible, right?
Number 5, they don't have to look like bugs. When bugs are made into flour, you can't even see them.
Okay, so the site did exist. I went to archive.org and put in bugsfordinner.com, and so it is down at the moment. Maybe a misconfiguration on their server, but it's not clear who is behind this. Entosense LLC, whoever that is. There's more coming up here. We'll talk more about the push to get humans to eat insects. You can share your thoughts. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Yep, it's Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here at 603-283-6160. At 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
You can join us online as well over at freetalklive.com. We're talking about the push to get people to eat insects. Bug eating is being pushed by the World Economic Forum and other interests who want to crack down on freedom and control people and stop them from eating the things that they want to eat and propagandize them, apparently, from a very young age. Bonnie, you're sharing a story from VigilantCitizen.com where he cites a poster that is allegedly up in California schools. Now, Aria, you said we should fact-check that because, well, it does deserve to be verified.
It is a good plan because it's something that lots of conservatives would love to just say is true.
Yeah, and it seems unbelievable on its face to some extent, but then when you factor in that it is supposedly in California, okay, now it's sounding a little more believable, and there is a push to eat bugs, so it wouldn't be unbelievable that some people in California would want to see this in schools. We did do a little bit more digging there during the break, and the poster was cited from a website called bugsfordinner.com. That site is currently offline. However, it did exist, and a quick check over at archive.org revealed the site is owned or was owned by a company called Entasense, E-N-T-O, Sense, one word rather, LLC. And it turns out Entasense does have an active website, which is edibleinsects.com, where they will sell you buttons about promoting eating insects, and they will sell you pounds of various different flavored crickets.
And that exact poster is on that website you're talking about. And then I found an article from csuci.edu, which sounds like something school district, whatever, saying that CSUCI and Oxnard School District team up for the Edible Insect Project, which is the same name of that website you're talking about. And they had people come to the schools in Oxnard, California. I don't know if I'm saying that right. And explain to the kids why they should eat bugs. And, people around the world eat bugs. Like, you can put different flavors on them. Little boy is quoted as saying, "It's kind of weird, but I like trying new things." I don't know. Maybe
and kids love bugs, right? So
I mean, some kids do. There's always that one kid that you can pay $5 to eat some mealworm or whatever.
But it's kind of messed up because you can tell he's not like all about it. They're trying to convince him. It's kind of weird, but I like trying new things, Anthony said. But when asked about what flavor bug he might like to try, he said, "I don't know, maybe ranch." It's not like he's like, "Ranch, I want to try the ranch mealworm."
The edible insects poster that you're talking about here, Bonnie, it's 18 by 24, and they say it is colorful, that will entice children's healthy curiosity. Great for classrooms and kids' rooms. Excellent addition to an entomophagy lesson plan. Entomophagy is the eating of insects, I believe, is what that term means. Yeah. All right, so even though there's not a picture that we've seen yet of this poster up on the wall at the school, the fact that the school board or the school itself has entered into some sort of a program with this particular company does make it pretty plausible.
They at least had people come out there from this company to give some lecture to the kids about eating bugs. I suspect they did not put up these posters, but they stopped just short of that. Right? Like, they clearly promoted this to kids.
Yep.
Do you want me to read the rest, the 6 through 10 reasons why
let's hear the rest of them.
You should eat bugs? Number 6 is they keep us strong and healthy. Bugs have tons of protein, and that's good for your muscles and bones. Other places totally don't have it. I'm just joking now, but other places you can't just get protein from anywhere else but freaking eating bugs, of course.
Well, the propaganda, of course, behind the bugs is that, well, then you're killing these animals instead of those cute animals over there. And so that's better. And quote unquote, it's somehow better for the environment. And of course, we know schools are pushing environmentalism heavy.
Absolutely.
So this definitely
Never
ties
since I was
right
a kid.
in. Yeah. This ties right in with the existing propaganda.
And number 7 is they're good for the environment. Bugs don't need much room. So we have more land for the growing population.
We don't need that, by the way, kids, because there's a ton of empty space right now. It's not like the rest of the United States outside of the cities is all occupied by cows. That's not the case in any way, shape, or form. There's a ton of empty land here and elsewhere in the rest of the world.
A lot of it's just cut off by government.
I've driven pretty extensively across the United States, from New Hampshire to Mississippi to Las Vegas, and there is a lot of empty space. The vast majority of it is empty space.
Right. We're not running
controlled by the government. Like, there's a Rhode Island-sized chunk of of Utah that you just can't go on. You can't even fly over because they're testing bombs there.
Well, 2/3 of the land west of the Mississippi is also owned by the federal government, quote unquote, and so you can't just roll in there and set up your own house and homestead some property because they said you can't. So there's a ton of empty space. I don't know if it was Penn and Teller's BS, the great television show that they had on for 8 seasons. I think they addressed this issue. Where they talked about how you could basically fit all of the world's population into, relatively small area, like the size of a postage stamp on a typical map or whatever of the world. Like
I've heard everybody could fit in Australia.
Yeah, that's probably true. So there's a lot of growing that people could do, and then of course there are still other ways to grow food that we haven't really exploited, like vertical farming, for instance. So it doesn't have to go horizontally. It can go up
And there's also these lab-grown meats that could help solve the
another
problem.
potential solution. Yeah.
And GMOs that allow, one tomato plant to produce, 100 tomatoes instead of just 30 or whatever.
Well, there were already scientists that found ways to make crops grow at exponential rates without using nitrites, but the owners of the fertilizer companies and stuff stamped that out. That science doesn't work for us, so,
What would hurt
since
their
we have the
profits?
money, you're going to use nitrite fertilizers instead of this stuff that just comes from nature. Okay, number 8 is they can help end world hunger. Bugs are cheap to make into food, so lots of people can afford to eat a healthy diet.
But the people who have to resort to eating bugs, as we pointed out, are the ones who are already poor.
Yes.
So it's not helping anything. It's not alleviating anyone's poverty that some people have to. It's just making more people live like they're in poverty.
Yeah, right now you can spend $40 at this website that I was talking about, edibleinsects.com, and you get a pound of crickets that are flavored various different flavors. And
What part of that is supposed to be alleviating poverty? I can get
Yeah.
a pound of chicken for significantly less.
Right. So I'm not really sure how it is that this is going to help people who are poor. I guess the idea is that, well, once it scales up, once we have bug manufacturing facilities all over the planet and they're manufacturing bugs at high volumes, then it will become cheaper than chicken and beef. But for right now, it's pretty expensive.
They haven't proven that it's scalable.
No,
First
I
of
think
all,
they want to. I mean, that's what they're
I
trying
doubt
to
that
do.
it is. I can't imagine that if you eliminated even half the meat that human beings eat, especially Westerners, on a daily basis, and you substitute that with crickets and mealworms and crap, I don't think there's enough room to raise all of those insects. Not to mention transporting them and all the other crap you have to do. I just don't see it.
One of the things we learned on a recent show was that there's apparently a factory in, I think it was like Ottawa, Canada. It's north of here, not very far. That is like the world's
Canadian
biggest.
province.
Yeah, it's like the world's biggest factory to make these bugs. And it's not clear how much they can supply or what. I don't know all the details on it. So this is something they're working on. They are rolling these things out. But until it gets to the point where you can go to Burger King and get the bug burger for less than the price of the actual hamburger, they're going to have a tough time getting people to do this voluntarily. And that was true with the Impossible Burger as well, which I don't know if it has ever come down to the same price. I know that when it came out a few years ago,
It's still more expensive.
it was like $1 more or something like that to get the Impossible Burger. And now you're saying, Bonnie, there may be some studies that show it could be bad for you in some way. We don't know all the details on that, but who knows?
I mean, it's probably that most of the people who are eating Impossible Burgers are getting them from, McDonald's or Burger King or wherever, instead of buying them from Hannaford's and cooking them themselves. So when they cook it, it's going to be loaded with salt and all this other crap that McDonald's and Burger King puts in it.
Yeah, that could be true. And I remember hearing about the Impossible Burger that it wasn't necessarily a health food. It's supposed to be like a burger, and so it's not like eating vegetables per se. They put other stuff in these
It's
things.
mostly made of soy.
But there should be nothing that you can do to a edible plant to make it unhealthy, though.
Well, they load other stuff up in there. Supposedly there's estrogen, I think, that they load up in there.
Well, soy is
or
just
something.
that's just part of
Oh, is it?
soy itself. I mean, there's probably like guar gum, all those gums they got to use to stick it together.
Do
and
we
make
get to
it.
number 10
No.
on the list?
9 is it's cool to try new things, and 10 is they can help us stay fit and trim.
All right, hour number 3 is coming up. Free Talk Live. Inflation, a sidelined labor force, and ever-increasing interest rates. It's the perfect storm for pushing the U.S. economy over the edge. Savvy investors are diversifying into gold and silver with BullionMax.com. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals will ship fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live listeners can now order one of BullionMax's most popular products, the Goldback. Now in stock, but supplies are going fast. To get your Goldbacks, go to BullionMax.com/FTL. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. The strikes appear to have targeted residential areas and civilian infrastructure in several key locations around the country, including the capital Kiev, which was hit for the first time in months. Ever since Trent Murray is there.
Seems that people are starting to make their way back out, head home after work. But we've spent much of the day in the bomb shelter of the building I'm in, just because the air raid sirens have been activated because of that Russian barrage of rockets. Now, we know that the first ones really hit around 8 a.m. local time. They struck a number of areas of the city, including a children's playground, a theatre that does orchestra and opera, and also a park. Now, this is just one of many places across Ukraine that these missiles hit. As you said, we also know missiles hit Kharkiv as well as Lviv, right in the far west of Ukraine near the Polish border. President Zelensky, as you might expect, has decried this attack, as saying Russia is acting as a terrorist state, as he described it.
Meanwhile, the missile strikes have drawn fierce criticism from European heads of state and the European Union, as FSN's Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
The European Union has described Russia's bombing raid on Ukraine as horrendous and a sign of desperation. European Council President Charles Michel described the attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure as war crimes, while Commission President von der Leyen said the strikes show that the Putin regime stands for brutality and terror. Russia fired over 80 cruise missiles into Ukraine on Monday, a move which Moscow said was in response to an attack which destroyed a vital bridge linking the annexed region of Crimea with mainland Russia. But Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte pushed back on the Kremlin's narrative, saying simply that the bombing raid was terrorism, not retaliation.
The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are warning a dark cloud is lingering over world economies as they begin their annual meetings. Central bankers, ministers of finance, company executives and academics are discussing solutions to inflation, supply chain disruptions and the risk of recession. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
In the first session of World Bank IMF autumn meetings, Kristalina Georgieva, IMF Managing Director, said that 1/3 of the global economy is soon likely to experience at least half a year of recession. Europe is reeling from an energy crisis, China's economy is flailing due to fallout from COVID policies and a property slump, and North America and other places are trying to tame inflation.
3 Americans, including the former US Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke, have been awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics. Their work on banks and financial crises was recognized by the Nobel Committee. The 3 winners published research in the 1980s that looked at how banks can help or hurt economies. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking today at the Arctic Circle Assembly that will be taking place later this week in the Icelandic capital Reykjavik. It will see thousands of delegates and other observers gathering for an annual event that is taking on increasing global importance as climate change impacts the Arctic Circle. 4 million people live there, most of them indigenous, but the melting of the glaciers and the warming of the waters may eventually open the Arctic up up to the rest of the world in ways that were once unimaginable. Bob McMahon is with the New York-based Council on Foreign Relations.
Is the Arctic under some sort of threat to be an arena of military conflict? A lot of experts say that's still a low possibility, but there have also been reports of Russia violating airspace of countries in the Arctic, including Finland, which is untapped to be a NATO member. So there's concern about a whole host of issues. Russia and Ukraine, as in many other fora, looms large, but there are also a lot of issues that are on the agenda that could still get some meaningful discussion, whether it's commerce, whether it's the environment, resource exploitation and exploration. Again, though, Russia looms large. More than 50% of Arctic coastline is in Russian territory.
Top-level representatives at the Assembly will come from a variety of countries, including the US, Canada and the Nordic nations, with security, climate change, indigenous rights and technology on the agenda. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. Residential areas and civilian infrastructure was targeted, including in the capital, Kiev. The missile strikes have drawn fierce criticism from European heads of state, the European Union and other Western countries. The International Monetary Fund is warning that a dark cloud is lingering over world economies as they begin their annual meetings. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
A mouse is eaten. It is an event that happens millions of times a day, all over the world. Other mice are wiped out by disease or starvation. If you collected all the mice that die in one day in New York City, they would weigh 8,000 pounds. If you stacked up an equivalent amount of dead humans or even mangy dogs, it would be considered an atrocity. It seems no one has any respect for the mouse. But then, why should they? The plankton of mammals. They breed rapidly. They all look identical, and they once spread the plague. No one weeps for the mouse, for its life is worth less than zero. Just another cold fact of life on this horrifying planet.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. We kick off the third hour of the program. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
We're talking about the World Economic Forum and their push to get people to eat bugs. And, you know, it's not to say I wouldn't have tried it. Like you were saying earlier, Aria, there's some people that like gross out stuff and, oh yeah, I'll eat this bug if you pay me $5 and let's make a video or whatever. So
yeah.
Like, I could see it from that perspective of like, oh, well, here's a bug. Oh, people are eating bugs. Try this. I wouldn't say I wouldn't have tried it, but now that I know who's behind the push, it makes me less interested in wanting to do anything like that.
I did it as a kid. We had this museum called the Pink Palace in Memphis that had this little rock candy thing that on the inside of it was a cricket. And there were always rumors among us that, you know, it was actually, you know, peanuts or some other type of nut that had been processed. But it just tasted like peanuts or some sort of nut. And you could, because it was a sucker, it was hard candy, you didn't eat the whole cricket at once. You just sort of got a taste of peanut here or there. You know, in hindsight, that's pretty gross.
Yeah.
But it was done in such a way that, you know, you really couldn't, it looked like a cricket, but you didn't taste cricket or anything like that. And we all did it because of the squick factor, right? It was just kind of gross, but it was...
The squick factor? I've never heard
that either.
It was just the novelty of it.
Yeah.
I've seen those in lots of gas stations and like gift shops and stuff, and also scorpions.
Cricket candies?
Crickets and scorpions and lollipops, but I've never tried one. No one in my family ever tried one. Like, it would just creep me out too much to know that I was eating it. And I always wondered, when you get to the scorpion or the cricket, do you eat it, or is that...
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, you don't eat a whole sucker at once, right? That's a good way to break your jaw.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the way this works is like a tiny little part of the cricket gets exposed and you just eat it. And the whole scorpion is never all exposed at once, and neither is the whole cricket because it's stuck inside a hard sucker.
And I'm sure they like take out the venom of the scorpion or whatever beforehand, but
I presume so.
Well, you can probably eat the
The venom.
The venom. Because, I mean, it's venomous, not poisonous, right? You don't want it injected into your bloodstream, but it's probably fine if you eat it.
Well, this is not advice per se. You don't know.
I don't know.
One should probably do some research before deciding to do this. But we're talking about this story that you had, Bonnie, from the Vigilant Citizen or VigilantCitizen.com. We're going to continue with that, but I do want to bring Major Payne on the line. He's in Michigan. You're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, you guys have brought many thoughts to the roulette wheel of my mind, as you usually do.
All right.
You give me a cricket, I will get you trout.
There you go.
Yep.
Or a bass, you know. I will have real food. As I sit here tonight, I'm smelling a T-bone that I just grilled up, and you've had me on hold so long, it's probably gotten cold. But the scraps from that would raise 100,000 maggots. But Lord knows, those maggots, and this is good information. Y'all need to know this. If you ever have a serious infested wound, you know, going gangrenous, maggots only eat rotten meat. You put the maggots in a rotten wound, you might damn well live.
I wouldn't want to live anymore.
I mean, he's right. This was old school medicine. This is where they treated infections and stuff like that because maggots will only eat, I think, dead tissue. They won't eat the living tissue.
Rotten meat.
Nasty.
Rotten meat. If it's not festered, they won't eat it.
I can't imagine somebody looking at a bowl of maggots and thinking, let's eat.
Yeah, well, that reminded me, too. I mean, cows don't fart, right? Okay.
Cows supposedly do
They
fart.
supposedly do fart.
That's why the
Green New
leftists don't like
Deal's
them.
on cow farts. But maggots, though they eat the most infested, putrid crap imaginable to man, I'm sure they pass no gas.
Well,
I don't know what the
just
maggot
multiply.
digestive system is like, so I can't speak to that.
Maybe they just poop out dirt. Like, you know, earthworms poop out basically dirt. Like, dirt is basically 90% earthworm.
Is that true?
Poop. I don't know about 90%, but...
That can't be true.
Well, they just sit
Really?
around and they eat things like dirt and then poop it out, and it's just part of the dirt at that point.
Antarctica is like 2% penguin urine.
Wow.
Learn something new every night here. Major, anything else you want to share?
Well, there is 250,000 ants for every man, woman, and child on the planet.
Oh,
So
you know
the
what?
bugs have us surrounded and outnumbered.
There's a really cool video. Was it you that found this, Bonnie? I don't remember if I found it. But there's like, I don't know how old it is. It's probably somewhat old, like an old National Geographic video where they went to an ant pile and they poured some kind of concrete or something liquid down the ant pile.
Good Lord, that's horrible.
It's horrible what they did.
It's
to
already
ants.
abandoned.
You're probably talking about a termite mound, Ian.
No, it was ants. They weren't saying they were termites. It was abandoned.
There wasn't like a bunch of dead ants in it. Maybe they already exterminated the ants.
Well, whatever. They poured whatever it was, it would then solidify after they'd poured it in there all the way in, and then they dug around it to reveal the structure of this ant farm, or not ant farm, but the ant colony.
Yeah.
And it was
the colony, right?
Humongous.
It's shocking and so intricate.
Amazing and
Yeah.
really intricate and really interesting. So, you want to look for an interesting video online tonight. Look for that one because it's pretty wild.
Oh, yeah, I saw that on Odyssey, actually.
Thank you, Major, for the call tonight. I do appreciate it. Let's go to Sarah. She's in New Mexico. Sarah, would you start eating insects?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah?
You know? I mean, if they grind it up enough flour and it's protein.
Now,
I
you're
think
on
it's
welfare,
reasonable.
so you get to eat things like steak and high-end foods like that because the taxpayers are paying for it. Given the choice...
Well, she eats banquet meals, she said.
She's also gotten like some high-end stuff from what I understand. Given the choice...
Banquet meals like the microwave dinner?
Food.
Yep.
Okay.
Given the choice between a nice juicy steak that taxpayers are paying for and a bottle of crickets, what's your choice going to be?
Well, I get to eat sushi because it's only $13 a big plate. It's just gotten really cheaper here in Albuquerque. I'm just amazed. We never had any of that in the supermarket. But we had restaurants here with sushi, and people really liked it, so they want it for lunch. So we got them and we get it with EBT, so I don't need to eat.
That's what I'm saying. She eats pretty nice on that welfare. But Sarah,
I pay for my sushi, Sarah.
You didn't answer my question though, Sarah. I asked you if you had to choose. I'll change it up. If you had to choose between a plate of sushi and a plate of crickets, which would you choose?
Well, I guess I would choose sushi.
Yeah.
I'm not too excited about cricket.
I don't blame you.
She said she would only eat it in a form that it's unidentifiable, like flour.
Every now and then, Sarah and I will agree on something. And
Well, I mean,
I
if
would
you
pick
think about
sushi as well.
if you think about the reality of sushi, it doesn't sound that much better. It's seaweed and raw fish with fish eggs on top and some other stuff. And I mean, that doesn't sound a whole lot better than crickets.
Yeah, I was already thinking about the fact that like people eat lobster and crabs and stuff, and that really kind of freaks
sea
me
insects,
out.
right?
And they're
Kind
like
of.
sea insects, but they have
meat
in them
inside them.
They also have like the
Well,
mustard.
so do crickets and stuff. It's just a smaller amount. Those big giant pill bugs that you see that people fish up from under the ocean. I bet they have plenty of meat in them.
Ew, I've never seen that.
But I wanted to bring up that I went to a church service at Legacy, and 3 people in the middle of the service, they got up and they were yelling as they walked out.
Really? Why?
They said that I'm tired of hearing about politics. He was talking about the candidates that the church chooses. And they had candidate tables set up in the hallway.
Was this like
And
a
they're
mega
"Oh, they come
church?
to work." Yeah, it's the mega church, Legacy
Oh,
Church.
wow.
Well,
and they were, and I'm trying to figure out: is this ethical? Is this legal? Are they authorized? They have permission to do this at a church.
It depends.
It has to be legal because they do it on TV all the time. God TV.
It depends.
Jim Baker is on there saying God wants you to vote for Donald Trump. He
If
told
they
me.
are 501c3 registered, then it is not legal for them to do that, as I understand it. Because when you get 501c3 status, it prevents you from taking positions on political issues and candidates. But the smart churches are the ones that don't get 501c3 because it's actually not a requirement in order to have donations be tax deductible, as I understand it, under the IRS own rules. It's just lawyers lie to churches and they tell them they have to be 501c3 to have donations be tax deductible, but that is not true. So I presume this church is probably not 501c3, in which case it's completely legal for them to endorse candidates. More coming up. Thanks, Sarah.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
8 great shopping tips. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks, and I am real impressed with all the ways to save that you are sending. Gabriella writes, I began buying fold-top sandwich bags to use with food items that don't need to be airtight. Even a sandwich at work won't spoil since you'll eat it within 3 or 4 hours. And fold top bags are much less expensive than those Ziploc type bags. And she whipped up a tasty ceviche using a can of sardines, much easier to work with than fresh fish, shrimp, or crab meat, she says, and much less expensive. She writes, "Who would have thought it would be a hit with my picky son?" So then she tried canned salmon. You can read her entire post on my blog, where you can share how you are coping. Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. In the studio, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
You can join us online at freetalklive.com. Coming up in less than 2 weeks, October 21st through the 23rd, our very own Mark Edge is speaking at the Free Cities Foundation annual conference, Liberty in Our Lifetime. It's getting a little late for you to put this trip together, but if you can pull it off, you're still welcome to attend, and you can get a 20% discount by using FTL20 as your discount code at lifetimeliberty.com. Their theme this year is Parallel Structures for Progress, and they're going to explore physical developments and parallel structures emerging in education and finance that offer alternatives for people looking for better ways to learn, educate their children, and invest in their future. You can go to lifetimeliberty.com, use code FTL20, and you'll save 20% on your tickets to Free Cities Foundation's conference, Liberty in Our Lifetime, in Prague, October 21st through the 23rd. You'll get to see Mark speak at that conference, and I'm sure many other great speakers. Code FTL20 saves you 20% at lifetimeliberty.com. We go overseas, where Stephen is on the line, calling us from Eastern France, where it is later than 3 in the morning, 3:20 in the morning there right now. Thanks for staying up late with us, Stephen. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello, good people. When I was listening to your program about eating bugs and stuff like this, it was really funny because I've been traveling quite a bit. I've been seeing it in Africa. The people eat a lot of locusts. You can see these people pushing food carts with this stuff on it. And when I asked about it, it was locusts. The people just come and pay. They put them in like a little packet, and they buy locusts. Wow. The thought of it, it tells the stomach that they eat it, huh?
Well, now these are very poor people, right? Like this is something that they...
No. It's just like, we have in Europe, in US, we have these hot dog stands. Yeah. All the people that are selling it, they're the same.
So is it kind of more touristy?
It's like I said, no, the people just, it's something normal that you can buy in the street like every day.
Just
people,
a difference in culture.
The kids buying it. Yes, it's part of their culture.
Wow.
It's nothing is strange about it.
But for you, it was strange. You didn't try it, did you, Stephen?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No way. But telling you this, it's all in the head, I was put in a situation a few years ago that I had to eat frog legs, and I couldn't refuse. So I was thinking about chicken, and I was eating frog legs.
Those are really popular in the southern United States.
Yep.
I've eaten frog legs. I wouldn't eat them now as an adult.
Does it taste like chicken?
I don't remember.
I've always heard that it tastes like chicken. Like I have lots of family in Louisiana. It's like a thing to eat there, but I wouldn't try it.
They say that about every meat, though, from alligator to snake to diamondback meat.
I feel like I did have frog legs within the last several
but
years.
I had what they call barbecue and crocodile in South Africa about 4 or 5 years ago.
I've had New Orleans. I've had gator.
I would try that, and I would try frog, and I would try snake before I tried bugs. And another thing people eat in Louisiana is a crawfish, and I wouldn't eat that.
Gators are kind of like a tough chicken, basically.
Turtle is also popular in some places. Possum, I think, as well. Squirrel. I would never eat a squirrel. To me, it would be like eating a cat, right? But I mean, some people do.
Are you seeing anything about this?
Hang on. You're talking about cat. The cat in certain parts of Africa is...
I don't want to hear about eating cats, please.
On there. So, hang on. They go and steal cats because they say if you eat cat, it'll make you brave.
Well, I'm sure there's all kinds of mythology out there.
Cat, the alley cat.
Stephen, I'm curious, in France, are you seeing any push to eat bugs there?
Well, how can I say? It was about a year and a half ago. It was just after this COVID business, they were opening the restaurants. So with the friends, we decided to go to a restaurant. And we took our, what I call children, they're all in their 20s and 30s. We went to the restaurant. They said because of restriction, we could only sit 10 people at each table, not more than that. So all the youngs were on one table, and us less young, we were on the other table. And all of a sudden, they brought us this big tray with different compartments in it. We looked at it, what is this? The children ordered bugs for us. And in each department, there was different kind of a bug.
Oh, wow. Did you eat them?
No way. Back to the next table.
But he's pointing out one of the things you were saying, Bonnie, in your story, and that is that they're going after younger people. As he said here, that it was the younger people that ordered the bugs.
Yeah. They're going after them. And I don't really understand why, because we don't have shortage of food.
Well, they're just trying to influence them to do this for some reason, and it's not.
Well, they're buying all the farmland, and they're trying to make you eat bugs. It's because they want to eat the good stuff and be the healthy people and have us eating stuff like bugs.
Maybe that is why. Stephen, one other question for you. I want to get some other calls on here, but I appreciate you calling in and staying up late listening to our show there. It's, overnights in France. But the other thing I wanted to know about was there's a lot of talk in the European Union, obviously, about conserving energy with the Russian gas being cut off and such, but also word is France has a lot of nuclear facilities. So are you feeling like this is going to be a normal winter for you there in France, or is there talk about cutbacks and reductions in France as well?
Oh, certainly we're going to have reductions. We're going to have a lot of problems. And it's all created by the government themselves. Sure. Already our electricity bill has gone up by 3 times.
Wow.
300%, Some people have gone even worse. The price of petrol and diesel has gone up by about 200%.
Damn.
Everything else has gone up hugely. And
I'm sorry to hear that.
They said we have to. Yeah, it's just created. There's something they created themselves, and I don't understand why. Because they say the fuel has gone up, but if you look at the price of a barrel of petrol, 10 years ago it was about between 120 and 148, and the diesel here it was about €1 a liter. But now Yesterday, it was about $80 a barrel.
Yeah. I mean, they did it because they don't believe in consequences. They believe they're gods. They're all powerful. They're in control of the universe and the earth. And if they decree a thing to be true, then it's going to be true. And there are no such thing as consequences. That's why they did it.
Well, and they also want people to be impoverished so they'll be more reliant on state handouts, more demanding towards the state. Now, of course, if they impoverish people too much, they may revolt. So it's a bit of a tricky balance they're going to have to try to pull off. But they did show during COVID that people are incredibly obedient given the correct circumstances. Stephen, thanks for the call. Hope that we hear from you again in France. Always interesting to get an international perspective, and appreciate hearing from you. More coming up.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. The strikes appear to have targeted residential areas and civilian infrastructure in several key locations around the country, including the capital Kiev, which was hit for the first time in months. Eversen's Trent Murray is there.
Seems that people are starting to make their way back out, head home after work. But we've spent much of the day in the bomb shelter of the building I'm in, just because the air raid sirens have been activated because of that Russian barrage of rockets. Now, we know that the first ones really hit around 8 a.m. local time. They struck a number of areas of the city, including a children's playground, a theatre that does orchestra and opera, and also a park. Now, this is just one of many places across Ukraine that these missiles hit. As you said, we also know missiles hit Kharkiv as well as Lviv, right in the far west of Ukraine near the Polish border. President Zelensky, as you might expect, has decried this attack, as saying Russia is acting as a terrorist state, as he described it.
Meanwhile, the missile strikes have drawn fierce criticism from European heads of state and the European Union, as FSN's Alex Cadier reports from Brussels.
The European Union has described Russia's bombing raid on Ukraine as horrendous and a sign of desperation. European Council President Charles Michel described the attacks on Ukrainian civilian infrastructure as war crimes, while Commission President von der Leyen said the strikes show that the Putin regime stands for brutality and terror. Russia fired over 80 cruise missiles into Ukraine on Monday, a move which Moscow said was in response to an attack which destroyed a vital bridge linking the annexed region of Crimea with mainland Russia. But Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte pushed back on the Kremlin's narrative, saying simply that the bombing raid was terrorism, not retaliation.
The International Monetary Fund and the World Bank are warning a dark cloud is lingering over world economies as they begin their annual meetings. Central bankers, ministers of finance, company executives and academics are discussing solutions to inflation, supply chain disruptions and the risk of recession. FSN's Caroline Malone reports from Washington.
In the first session of World Bank IMF autumn meetings, Kristalina Georgieva, IMF Managing Director, said that 1/3 of the global economy is soon likely to experience at least half a year of recession. Europe is reeling from an energy crisis, China's economy is flailing due to fallout from COVID policies and a property slump, and North America and other places are trying to tame inflation.
3 Americans, including the former US Federal Reserve Chair Ben Bernanke, have been awarded the Nobel Prize for Economics. Their work on banks and financial crises was recognised by the Nobel Committee. The 3 winners published research in the 1980s that looked at how banks can help or hurt economies. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Aria.
We invite you to our website at freetalklive.com. The features that are waiting for you there are free, unlike those other talk shows that want to charge you to access their sites. We give you access to our own social media site, our chat server, plenty of archives going back for years. So head on over to freetalklive.com. Speaking of the social media site, you can go to social.freetalklive.com and you will be able to interact with other Free Talk Live listeners there. Remember, when you sign up, we do have to manually approve signups because it's really the only way to keep spammers out of the system. So just when you sign up, just put some reference to Free Talk Live in where it asks you how you found the server or why you're signing up, and that'll make it pretty clear you're not a spammer. You'll get approved, and you can start posting, and it's open source, and it's self-hosted, and it's a Mastodon system, which means it is federated, as they call it, so it's connected with other Mastodons all around the planet. And we get to run the server, which means we set the rules, so you have way more freedom to speak at social.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones here. We have Brett calling us from North Dakota. Brett, you're on listening on the radio on the road. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, I guess I was just listening to you guys talking, and what struck me as kind of odd and something I just felt compelled to call is that it seems to me that, for generations in the United States, we've been socially brainwashed by the government ever since the Red Scare, and prior to that the USSR was evil and, the U.S. is good, and etc. And I know Russia and the USSR are different, and some people argue about how different, but I think that kind of is a big stumbling block in understanding and looking at current U.S.-Russia relations from an unbiased point of view. And then the other thing I was going to say, comment on one of your...
Just to clarify what you're just saying. You're saying that the history of the Soviet Union is affecting how people view Russia today.
And
is
the
that
U.S.
correct?
propaganda against it.
I mean, there's no doubt, right? I mean, the average American views Russia as an enemy long before this nonsense with Crimea and Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
The perspective has always been that Russia is an enemy. They're not a partner. They're not an ally. They're not a friend. They're an enemy. They're an adversary.
Right. And you're saying that's unfair because Russia is not the Soviet Union. They should not be treated the same way as the Soviets were.
Well, I'm not trying to draw too many comparisons or contrasts between the two, but I would like to point that out, that is what helps the U.S. and Russia. They both use information warfare to, gain sway. Clearly, the West seems to be winning in the fields of, Western media, United Nations, etc. Probably why organizations such as SCO and BRICS are, becoming more and more popular.
Mm-hmm.
There's clearly this bias. I mean, I see it as an impediment not only to future relations, but also to the truth. I mean, one of you guys said that, you can't trust anyone. They're both liars.
Right.
And I totally agree with that. But I mean, looking at history, I can count, just in my short lifetime, I've seen U.S.-led NATO bomb Yugoslavia. I've seen them support secessionists. I've seen them invade Syria, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan. And yet they say that Russia does the same thing.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
it's so
I do
bad
know
when
that-
Russia does it, but it's fine when the U.S. does it.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, totally, right?
It's hypocrisy.
And yet Syria and Afghanistan invited Russia in. I mean, these are things that, history tells us, and unfortunately it's not being taught to people in school today. I mean, even stemming back in 1953, right, when Iran was overthrown by the U.S. I mean, we have a history of this coup d'etat. So not knowing anything about the U.S. or Russia-Ukraine war, I think it's pretty easy to say to bet, at least, that I have a lower propensity to believe Western media. That's all I'm saying.
Yep. I agree. There's just no reason to believe the Western media's perspectives on these things. They're proven to be the transmitters of liars at the very worst. Even if they don't know they're lying, they are taking lies from the federal government and passing them on without question, whether it be weapons of mass destruction from 20 years ago or the Ukraine situation today. None of it can be believed. Brett, any other thoughts you want to share?
No, that's it. But thank you for your time.
Thanks for the call. Appreciate you calling in here tonight. Let's go to the phones and continue with Joe in Maryland. You're on Free Talk Live. Joe.
Yeah, hi, everybody.
What's on your mind, Joe?
I usually like the show. Tonight's show is kind of bugging me.
Ha, 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 ha.
Wait, what?
He said the show's kind of bugging him.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, are you nuts? You think I'm going to eat bugs?
No.
No, we don't think that.
Real. Okay, thank you.
But that's what they think. That's what the powers that be want to try to manufacture somehow in people.
Well, it sounds like they don't want you to eat bugs. They want your kids to eat bugs.
The worst part about it is just the implying that it's immoral to eat what our ancestors have eaten for thousands of years, and that you should eat bugs if you want to be a good person. That's what I don't like. If it was just like a trend that organically came out and other people were eating bugs, I would probably be even a little more open to trying it than the fact that it's being pushed on us like you're a bad person, you want global warming to happen. And
We're not farming the way our ancestors farmed for thousands of years, though. Our ancestors didn't have, Tyson-like farms where they crammed thousands of chickens into 10 square feet.
Yeah, I would much rather us be able to go into regenerational. No, that's not the word for it. But there's a type of farming that is more like what our ancestors did. That lots of people are
ancestral
wanting to try. It is regenerative farming. That's what it's called. It's where you have your animals on the same farms you grow your plants on. They poop on it. You don't have to use nitrate fertilizers, and you can grow much better things, but you're not propping up an industry.
What do you think, Joe? Do you think they're going to be able to persuade your kids if you have them?
Yeah, they've controlled us. Well, not me, but they've controlled most of the population. I was born in 50. So.
Well, if you take your kids out of public school, they have a significantly lower chance of being successful in getting your kids to eat bugs.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, okay, talking about the bug thing, General Philip Sheraton, he wrote a correspondence to the War Department and the President and said, what we have to do is kill the buffalo, and that's the Indians' commissary. Well, then the Indians were reduced, and they used to have to eat bugs and grubs from the ground and things like that. So that's what our government did. That's the government that's telling us bugs are good. And they said, kill the commissary and let the Indians eat bugs. Horrendous.
Great point tonight, Joe. Thanks for sharing that with us. I appreciate hearing from you.
All right.
The number here is 603-283-6160. Yeah, the Indians learn you don't trust the government.
It still amazes me to this day that in anyone of any history or any ethnicity or race or whatever can trust any government after seeing what governments around the world have done throughout human history.
They just don't really see it, because when I was in high school, I never got any kind of history that showed that the government was bad. It was all, there were robber barons, and thanks to the government we have unions, and now little kids aren't in coal mines, and that's the type of stuff I learned about history.
Total propaganda. Speaking of government classrooms, here's one of the reviews from the Edible Insects website we mentioned earlier from a teacher who says, we've been having, this is on the crickets, the bulk crickets that you can buy a pound for $40. She says, we've been having so much fun with these. Every kid in my class tried them with little hesitation. After my class enjoyed them, we had some left over, so we offered them as munchies at a party. Adults were harder to convince, but by the end of the night, all the adults had tried them, and everyone loved them, except for one person.
Adults were harder to convince.
Yeah, but
that's because adults can, think and rationalize.
They signed on, though. They don't want to
peer pressure is powerful
in front of their kids or whatever. More coming up here. You can share your thoughts. You can bring up whatever's on your mind here in the remaining moments of Free Talk Live. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 15th through the 18th for the 7th Annual Fork Fest. at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Forkfest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out in 2022. For 2023, we're going back to where it all started, the weekend before Porkfest. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 15th through the 18th. You can find out more at the unofficial website forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 15th through the 18th. Forkfest.party.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. Do you prefer to listen to Free Talk Live on your schedule on demand? You can find the link to our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com, which features the daily digest of our radio show 7 days a week. Just drop our RSS feed into your favorite podcast client or subscribe to us on the large platforms if you prefer, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Spotify, and Stitcher. All the links are at feeds.freetalklive.com. If the daily digests aren't enough for you and you really don't want to miss a moment of Free Talk Live, you can always sign up for our AMPS Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com for just $5 a month, and you'll get the full radio show without recorded commercials. Plus, you'll help us advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. That's amps.freetalklive.com to join AMPS, or feeds.freetalklive.com to get our main podcast, or find us on the major podcast platforms. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160, and you can join us online anytime at freetalklive.com. If you like what we do here at Free Talk Live, then please support us via the AMPS program. Christian E. is one of our supporters. And Christian is somebody who's been, I believe, a long-time supporter. And Christian's doing silver level, which means $5 a month. That's all we ask. Over at amps.freetalklive.com. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to help us do Free Talk Live, get it on more radio stations around the country, and bring new internet listeners on board, exposing new people to the ideas of freedom. So if you value what we do here and you think it's worth $5 a month, then please send it on over at amps.freetalklive.com. You can use your credit card, your debit card, your PayPal account through Patreon, and you get access to some perks like the AMPS-only RSS podcast feed, which you can plug into your favorite podcast client and then get the full radio show archives without recorded commercials. That you can get through our Patreon at amps.freetalklive.com. It's Ian, Bonnie, Aria here in the studio tonight. Bonnie, you had some more that you wanted to share about this bug propaganda from the World Economic Forum. They are trying to get people to buy bugs, to get into promoting the idea of eating bugs. And if the World Economic Forum is promoting it, it's probably a really bad plan. What else do we need to know?
So Vigilant Citizen at vigilantcitizen.com is now wondering why insects. And he believes that there could he's wondering, is there maybe a more nefarious reason behind the insect pushing?
There's
insect
always
eating?
a nefarious reason. Whenever an agenda is being pushed like this, it's never because they care about us and want us to be healthier or whatever.
Yep.
If they did, they would be promoting diet and exercise.
Yep.
But it's not. It's eat bugs.
While there was a pandemic of, a sickness, they weren't saying, here are things to boost your immune systems. They were saying,
stay inside.
Stay inside. Don't go in
sunlight.
the sun. Don't exercise and cover your mouth so you're breathing your own exhale all day.
Don't go jogging.
All the things that good doctors like Ron Paul said were really bad ideas.
Yep.
Ron Paul said you should get sunlight. You should go outside, get some fresh air, get some exercise. And that's exactly what the governments were telling you not to do.
But I do think that if the government's pushing something, there's probably a nefarious reason behind it.
Probably.
To continue, the article goes, if one steers away from the obvious propaganda and looks into the scientific research conducted in the past decades, some worrying facts quickly surface. The main one, insects are toxic. A 2019 study titled A Parasitological Evaluation of Edible Insects and Their Role in the Transmission of Parasitic Diseases to Humans and Animals states, basically it's a long thing, but the bold part is, in this context, the unfathomable issue is the role of edible insects in transmitting parasitic diseases that can cause significant losses in their breeding and may pose a threat to humans and animals. So, parasites were detected in 244, or 81% out of 300 examined insect farms. In 206, or 68% of cases, the identified parasites were pathogenic for insects only, but in 106, or 35% cases, parasites were potentially parasitic for animals, and in 91, or 30% of cases, parasites were potentially pathogenic for humans. Edible insects are an underestimated reservoir of human and animal parasites.
So most of these insects have parasites that are only going to affect insects. However, 30% of them had parasites that would also affect human beings.
Yep.
Did I catch all that?
Sounds right.
That sounds about right. That's what I find hard to believe about this bug thing. It's like parasites are kind of everywhere in nature. I mean, a lot of insects are in fact also parasites.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
Well, that's why the study differentiates between the parasites that were potentially pathogenic for humans and the ones that weren't. So some, I guess you can have the parasite in you, but it doesn't hurt you.
Well, like toxoplasmosis, right, which is the parasite that people get from cats. It doesn't hurt you. It doesn't seem to do anything to you. It may increase your fondness for cats. It's really unclear. like no joke, right? There is this theory that toxoplasmosis, it causes rats.
Is that what causes crazy cat ladies?
Maybe.
Wow.
But it does seem to cause mice and cats to be, mice and rats to be less afraid of cats.
Is this the one that if a cat scratches you, how do you get it? The toxoplasmosis?
It's generally in their feces. So when you clean out their litter or whatever, there's a 100% chance I have toxoplasmosis. I'm sure most human beings do, right?
The idea is you just accidentally get it in, your
Breathe
body
it in
somehow, or you're inhaling it, or
and it doesn't affect anything.
Wash your hands and then you touch something that goes in your mouth. Is that the idea?
I don't know.
Because I would hope most people would clean up after cleaning out a litter box, but if it's something you can't avoid from inhaling it,
that would be my guess. Yeah. But I don't know the details of how big these things are, whether or not they can be airborne, or I have no idea. I just know that it's a thing, and it's evidence
harmful.
Sort of suggests that it makes people like cats more.
Interesting.
That's
Interesting
really crazy.
defense mechanism.
And it would make sense why the Egyptians had the cats and wouldn't eat them and really liked them and stuff before any other culture or whatever. Maybe because they started living with them?
Maybe.
Well, it says the full study that we just talked about describes each parasite that was discovered and noted that they were particularly harmful to the gut and lungs of humans. Other studies focused on chitin, Chitin. And
these are a type of pill bug, right?
Nope, it says a natural structural component found in insects' exoskeletons.
Okay.
The 2007 study, chitin induces accumulation in tissue of innate immune cells associated with allergy. Oh, that's the name of the study, sorry. I'm not going to read all that. In other words, the study found that chitin causes an allergic reaction in humans. Maybe that's our body's way of telling us that we shouldn't eat the exoskeleton of insects.
Yeah.
That makes sense. It's an exoskeleton, right? It doesn't sound like something we should eat.
No.
Another study about chitin concludes, quote, chitin, a polysaccharide constituent of many allergens and parasites, initiates innate type 2 lung inflammation through incompletely defined pathways.
Sounds bad.
Sounds bad for your lungs.
Yeah. Any sort of lung inflammation is bad. And I mean, especially when we're dealing with, COVID-19, which causes lung problems or whatever. Why would you want to exacerbate this problem by feeding people exoskeletons?
And another study focusing on chitosan, a chemical compound made from chitin, discovered that its consumption leads to the depletion of vitamins in the human body, which leads to disastrous effects.
Sounding better and better all the time. Let's weaken the people by telling them that this is good for them and getting them to eat this stuff.
I mean, I don't see it going over with most people, I just don't.
I don't either, but that's the idea, is to get them while they're young and recruit children into this.
So get your kids out of public schools.
Yeah.
I mean, hands down, that's the best thing you can do.
They know the older generation is going to die away. All they have to do is focus on the younger generations. What else do we need to take away from this, Bunny? Is there more?
Well, the rest is just him wondering if maybe they are creating it's Vigilant Citizen, that's the author, writing, his thoughts on maybe why they would be pushing this. He says that he thinks that they're creating a crisis, and this is just part of, causing people to, think that they have to be reliant on the government. Like, they created this issue in the Netherlands where the government engaged war on livestock farmers because of quote-unquote pollution. They're doing all those type of things. Bill Gates is buying all the farmland, and he thinks that maybe they're purposely creating this crisis, making it seem like, oh, you need to eat bugs because of all these issues we're having, and it's just a way to get us more reliant on government.
I'm Nicole Kidman, and I am going to eat a 4-course meal of bugs.
This is the Vanity Fair Nicole Kidman's secret talent.
To reveal my hidden talent, eating micro livestock, cornworms. They're still alive.
She puts them in her mouth.
She said 4-course meal?
Yeah. Extraordinary, she says. And she leans back and opens her mouth and daintily places it inside.
Very moist, chewy. Can't quite describe the flavor, but need a little water. Let's try.
She said she needed water? So she's like, I can't quite describe the taste. Oh, let me get that out of my mouth.
Extraordinary.
Side note, 2 billion people in the world eat bugs, and I'm one of them. Because here we go.
She's got more.
Yeah, most of them don't, eat bugs because they're being, frivolous and weird.
Yeah. She's got more mealworms that are also live. They look like maggots squirming around.
I'm telling you, I'd win Survivor.
Oh yeah, she's from Australia.
That is a fruity taste.
Fruity?
Recommend it. Here we have. Oh, crickets. Oh, nothing. Oh.
The line, she'd barely put the bug in her mouth. She certainly wasn't responding to its taste at that point. So there's definitely some acting, I think, going on here, and that's her job. We'll see you tomorrow night. freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com. Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Ukraine says at least 11 people have been killed in Russian missile strikes on the country. The strikes appear to have targeted residential areas and civilian infrastructure in several key locations around the country, including the capital Kiev, which was hit for the first time in months. Eversen's Trent Murray is there.
Seems that people are starting to make their way back out, head home after work. But we've spent much of the day in the bomb shelter of the building I'm in, just because the air raid sirens have been activated because of that Russian barrage